Hey everybody, it's Hector. Before I get going with this episode, I've actually had to record this like multiple times at this point because I feel like I'm dragging out too much about it. But this episode is gonna while it's our end of the year episode, which you'll see, Jose and Kelcey will be on this episode as well. But this episode we're just gonna look at the tables for the top Power Five leagues, recap Liga MX, and Edward also paying his singing bet, um, and announce our Player of the Year. But the thing, a couple days ago, actually Wednesday, December 11th, um, unfortunately I had to say goodbye to my dog Robo. If you guys have been familiar with this podcast, especially on the early years, Robo has kind of been a little bit of a staple for this podcast, and he's been here from the beginning, obviously. And um, he wasn't feeling well, um, and unfortunately, the vets uh basically told me that surgery would not really give me much more time with him. So they told me that I could have him go through surgery and get a little bit more time with him, or put him to sleep. And me not wanting to, you know, see my dog suffer, I decided to choose the route of putting him under, and mainly because I just didn't want to see him in pain anymore. Um, you know, so if I'm weird at all during this episode, which I don't think I will, I'll be able to give you guys a good show this episode. But if I do end up acting weird, I just understand that that's probably why. But yeah. So unfortunately, um, and on top of that, not only did I had to put my dog to sleep, but the next day was literally my birthday. So not so. But obviously, I'm sorry. But which thank you to everyone who's reached out to me for either sending their condolences about Robo, or trying to wish me a happy birthday. I know contextually probably not the easiest way to approach somebody after they just lost their dog, but you know, um, I appreciate everyone that's taken the time to like reach out to me. And but with that being said, man, like I said, Robo has been a staple on this podcast, from him barking in the middle of recordings, him snoring while we're recording, to him farting in mid recordings, all those things. He was a big part of this show and a big part of my life, and I miss him. Obviously, he's my best friend, and I know he's here in spirit, and he'll always be here with me. And it's not easy, right? It's not easy getting used to not having your companion by your side, and so yeah, it's been a hard couple of days. But like I said, I'm gonna do my best to give you guys still a good show. Um, this episode will be not only our end of the year episode, but it will be also a tribute to Robo. Honestly, just one of the most loving, amazing dogs I've ever got to have, and for all that he's been through before he came to us, we gave him a loving home. But for him to be able to be accepting of that was, especially all that he went through as a rescue, uh, kind of tells me about how much of a great of a dog he is, and it was. Um, so so yeah, this episode will be a tribute to Robo. So that's even more motivation for me to give you guys a good show. So like I said, we're gonna be looking at the tables for Ligue 1, Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, the Premier League. We're gonna recap the Liga MX final. Edward is paying his singing bet for this episode, so you hear him singing in the intro for our Player of the Year announcement, and for our outro. So yeah, so we're gonna kick this off right, give you guys a good show for the end of the year, and And to Robo, thank you so much for everything that you've been able to give me in these past couple of years since we adopted you. Um, everyone in my family misses you, we love you. And, oh man, I promise I wasn't gonna cry. Uh, we know you're in a good place. We know you're up there, hopefully hanging out with my uncle Hector and Spencer's grandma. Hope you're over there giving them the same amount of love that you've always given us. And this episode's for you, buddy. Man, I love you and I miss you. Um, but yeah, well, so sit back, relax, and unfortunately, you're gonna have to hear Edward sing. So this is probably not the worst thing that you had to hear today. So, so thank you so much for everyone that's reached out. And yeah, let's get this show going, man. Episode 199, the end of the year episode. This is for you, Robo.
The following is a presentation of the BellyUpSports Media Network.
If there's anything you need, all you have to do is say, satisfy everything in me. We shouldn't waste a single day. So don't stop me falling, it's destiny calling, a power I just can't deny. It's never changing, can't you hear me? I'm saying I want you for the rest of my life. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you. If they ever get you down, there's always something I can do, because I wouldn't ever want to see you frown. Always do what's best for you. There ain't no mistaking, it's true love we're making, something to last for all time. It's never changing, can you hear me? I'm saying I want you for the rest of my life. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you. I could dedicate this song to all the cheeky babies out there. So don't stop me falling, it's destiny calling, a power I just can't deny. It's never changing, can't you hear me? I'm saying I want you for the rest of my life. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you.
What is up, everybody? My name is Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast, a member of the Belly Up Sports Media Network. You can find us on all things podcasting. Just look us up, insert name FC. Pretty straightforward. You'll find us there. Definitely on Apple and Spotify. Those are the two big ones, but anywhere that has podcasting, you will see us there. As well, you can find us on YouTube. So we have the full audio episode available on YouTube, but we also have these episodes broken down into shorter video forms. So if that's a little bit more easier to digest for certain folks, that could be the avenue for you guys. So that is an option as well. Follow us on social media at insert name FC on Instagram, X, Facebook. On TikTok, it's insert.name.fc. I know that last week I promised to go back to making clips. Obviously, if you guys heard the beginning of this episode, you guys kind of have an idea as to why it wasn't necessarily a priority for me to knock out some videos. But yeah, this episode is our end of the year episode. This is after this episode, we'll be taking a brief break. We won't be coming back till the 9th. So till January 9th. So we'll be taking essentially kind of like a 2-week break. A 2-week break, to celebrate Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll come back and start talking about the game again. But yeah. So it is our end of the year episode. This episode will take a look at the standings for the Power 5 leagues. If you guys don't know the Power 5 leagues, it's Ligue 1, Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and the Premier League. Essentially going into that order, ascending order. Sorry about that. In this episode, so to talk Bundesliga, Liga and Bundesliga and Serie A, it'll be Kelcey Coyne of Hogh Low Sports. He's coming on to talk about those leagues. And then we have Jose Tellez, the mastermind of GolzTV, to talk La Liga and the Premier League. So great conversations there. We will be recapping the final of Liga MX. The final's over. Just let you know, I'm actually recording this before the match, the second leg even starts. As of right now, America is up 2-1 on aggregate, but who knows? Maybe something happens in the second leg where can shake things up in the final. But just so you guys have an idea, we announced our 2024 Roosevelt Spencer's Play of the Year. This was a very interesting year because it was very wide open starting it, and then it kind of went down the way it went down. So there's that. Give you guys some games to watch this weekend. We have some juicy matchups. The last of the first half of the singing bet season. Well, not singing bet. It's actually now a jersey bet because so obviously, unfortunately, you had to hear Edward sing Rick Astley's "Together Forever." Edward is paying his singing bet this episode. So that won't be the only time you hear Edward sing. I'm sorry to tell you that. So he singing the intro. He's going to sing before we announce our Player of the Year award. And then he's going to sing for the outro. So I'm very sorry, but this is the singing bet. But this is actually the last time we'll be doing the singing bet on the podcast. Being that now just so you guys have an idea, being that now we're available on YouTube, and obviously, at one point, the goal is to be able to be monetized on YouTube. And so we can't really be monetized and get hit with copyrights because then we won't get paid. We won't get paid for that video. So that's kind of like also the logic behind it. So there's also that. But so we're no longer. So next season. So this season that's currently going on is actually a jersey bet where second and third place puts money to, buys a jersey for the winner. And we'll look at the standings. We'll actually look at the standings for the jersey bet amongst me, Edward, and Spencer. And kind of give you guys, in case you guys didn't hear how we're doing the jersey bet now amongst ourselves. Speaking of jersey bets, I don't know. Maybe I make a jersey bet here. I don't know. Maybe I drop a jersey bet in this episode. If I do, I'll make sure to have that video have that clip available for all the sites so everyone knows what my dumbass has in store for the second half of the season. But yeah, um, so now yeah, and then give you guys some games to look forward to this weekend. Obviously, this is we still have some match weeks left, but the fight. Well, speaking of the singing bet, the jersey bet, um, so Edward and Spencer, they literally just had the Manchester Derby. Spencer likes Manchester City. Edward's a Manchester United supporter, and yeah, man, crazy upset 2-1 victory. I don't know because Man City has been terrible, hasn't been great this in recent form, but. Yeah, what a derby. I watched it. I had to watch this one because, this could change how the table looks, and two, it's a derby. But no, yeah, props to Manchester United. They got the win. And yeah, so there's one more matchup, and it's actually also Edward and Spencer. So I have it does impact me at the same time, but it doesn't impact me in some sense. So we'll see, but we'll get to the table when we go to games to watch. I'll let you know once we get there. But yeah, man. And then wrap this show up in pretty little bow for you guys. And like I said, this is going to be the last episode for the year, episode 199. So that is the cool part, is that going into next episode will be our 200th episode. Way to kick off 2025 with that. So yeah, so and like I said, this episode will be also our way to dedicate the life of our beloved Robo. And so can't wait for that. But all right, guys, sit back, relax, and we're going to take a break. You guys are going to hear an ad. Don't worry, you don't have to hear Edward sing just yet. And we'll go right into Ligue with Kelcey Coyne of Hogh Low Sports. So let's get this end of the year episode going. Let me tell you guys about BellyUpSports. BellyUpSports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. BellyUpSports is the premier, not your average website. All right, guys, we got the first couple of leagues that we're going to be touching up in this episode. Like I said, we're going to go through all 5 of the Power 5 leagues. I feel like I hate saying Power 5, especially when Ligue 1 is thrown into that bit. Also, if you heard that chuckle, it's Kelcey Coyne from Hogh Low Sports. Of course, we're going to have the super sub. Might be a little bit of competition between him and the person that will be covering La Liga and EPL with Jose Tellez, as far as like probably recency. But obviously, Kelcey is our from the beginning, our legend. So, I don't know. Is the pressure on between you and Jose? How do you feel about that, Kelcey?
No, I love Jose. If there's going to be somebody that takes my title, it won't be Jose, but it won't be anybody else either. I love it, honestly. I'm glad Jose's kind of picking up where I can't fill in at. So it's fantastic, how much content he's able to provide for you guys as well. So no, I love every time I'm here. So anytime it's me, or Jose, or I just get to listen to it, either way, I enjoy every time I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. But all right, so we are looking at the tables. Just so you guys have a reference, we are recording this on Monday. I think that there's some midweek matches in some of the leagues. I don't know if Ligue 1 or Bundesliga or Serie A are any of those leagues, but there's there. So if anything sounds a little bit off, or if you're watching this on, which I mean, this clip isn't going to be seen on the YouTube part, but if there's anything that seems off on YouTube, and maybe it's already been, the weekend's already passed, and you're like, what are you guys talking about? These standings don't look anything like, it's because we recorded this back on Monday. So just a reference. But yeah, we do have Kelcey here, man. Kelcey, before we start talking about this, so far, how has 2024 looked as far as this season has come in? Is there any shocks or surprises? And you don't, it doesn't have to be Ligue 1, Bundesliga, and Serie A. You can even go into the Prem and La Liga as well.
For me, I do want to avoid EPL and La Liga for no other reason than Serie A is the one that fascinates me the most. Just the so many options. It feels like the teams that for us as Americans that see on a regular basis, quote unquote, being good, like AC Milan, not even in a position to play in a European tournament right now. So it's like there are teams in Serie A that are doing well that maybe haven't done well in recent years. Looking at you, Fiorentina, and then there's teams there that are like, okay, this makes sense. And then you have Juventus just kind of chilling, barely even in a EuroLeague position. And it's so for me, Serie A is just missing the word, but it's just so open. It feels like in Serie A versus in past years. It feels like Serie A right now is a open kind of run of the mill. Whoever gets there, and we're just going to accept it this year. It's not like it doesn't feel like there's a front runner in the big four that have always been there. It just feels like this is just going to be whoever can hold out the longest and not lose anymore.
Exactly. I mean, remember the season started where I think that almost everybody drew.
Yeah.
So that was like the first day of the table. Everybody had a tie. Like it was one of the most bizarre.
That's the storyline for the entire Serie A. It's just too many draws. That's literally
So
my
many
note
draws.
for a couple of these teams. It's just too many draws right now.
Yeah, I think that's very spot on. And yeah, I think Serie A, if you guys haven't been watching, we'll talk more about the Serie A, but if you guys haven't been watching, and of course I say that and I activate my stupid phone. Damn it, Apple. Anyways, but yeah, so Serie A will be the final league that we actually cover, but we'll kick things off with the league that, let's be honest, like it's just I know we put them in the Power Five because they have a certain team in their um but yeah, Ligue 1. I mean, maybe someone makes an argument for the Portuguese league, and it's not going to be a very strong argument. But I mean, they have probably more names, Benfica, Porto, and Sporting, versus Ligue 1's PSG, and there's only one reason and one reason only that we talk about PSG is because of the money. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I would probably still rather say that the Ligue 1 is better than the Portuguese league, even though I enjoy the Portuguese league. I think it's a fun league to watch. Whenever you see those big three go against each other, it's very entertaining football. And the same thing for Eredivisie. I think it's very entertaining football, especially when you get to see the names before they become names, because they're stepping stone leagues. And I mean, you can say probably the same thing for Ligue 1. I mean, everyone calls it a farmers league for a reason, but um, I don't know. I think also my logic is like sometimes they grab those players from the Eredivisie, from the Portuguese league, from the Belgium league, those leagues. So, say what you want, but Ligue 1's grabbing your players too.
Yeah, no, Ligue 1 it's the league to me. There's stepping stone leagues, which you just said. I do think Portugal still falls in that category. The Netherlands, those leagues do qualify in that. But then there's Ligue 1, who's like not necessarily the top tier, but if you go to Ligue 1, you're getting paid well in every facet of the game. So, and obviously right now, I think you're right. There's not bigger teams in France, but historically, there are bigger teams in France like Marseille, Lyon, Monaco, Lille. Well, Lille's really a relatively new team. You obviously mentioned PSG, but then going down the list, there's like Montpellier and FC Nantes, who Americans should know very well if you watched any soccer for between 2010 and 2018. You should know that team very well because they brought in many Americans to play there. So, yeah, there's teams there that are historically meaningful, but not currently, and it's sometimes disappointing to watch this league. I got to be honest.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. But we'll start things off with the teams that are in the relegation zone. And 18th place, we got Montpellier, which Kelcey mentioned. It's a staple at one point in Ligue 1. I mean, Olivier Giroud came from that team, and it's been rough for Montpellier. I'm not gonna deny it for them. They haven't necessarily been that team, and I think it just goes back to I do feel in some sense PSG has ruined the league for some of these teams because of them essentially pulling a Bayern Munich and pulling guys from across this league to build their team, and I obviously but that's the sad reality, and I think Montpellier, you're just discovering their flaws as well. But I mean, on the flip side, we saw what happened with Bordeaux, where they just lost everything, and now they're not even a professional club anymore. They're an amateur pro-am club. So and they're currently in the fifth division. And I hope we don't see that for Montpellier. I think, especially it's the same for Bordeaux, a team that has had success in Ligue 1. I mean, Zinedine Zidane, wore that kit at one point in his career. I'm sure that was painful for him to see. But
Yeah,
yeah,
fun fact: Zidane and Ronaldinho played against each other in the French in Ligue 1 when they were both there. Obviously, with Ronaldinho playing for PSG.
before it was cool.
Yeah, before it was cool. Back when they had gray and blue as their colors.
Oh, what a time. But yeah, Montpellier, 18th place with 9 points right now. Yeah, not where you want to be. Can you improve on it? Probably not. I mean,
No.
it's not it's gonna be a daunting task for Montpellier. And then 17th place with 12 points is Le Havre SC. Um, didn't expect much from them, to be honest, man. They're not. It's one of those teams that I think they did get promoted this year, and I mean, it's just what happens with those kind of teams. They come up and go right back down. It is what it is, kind of thing. Now, 16th. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, Ligue 1 just completely changed their league format. They moved away from the 20-team league format to now having 18 teams, and that 16th place spot now has a play-in. So, essentially, if you guys are trying to figure out what that play-in means, at Saint Etienne, who currently is in that 16th place with 13 points, at the end of the season, they will play a knockoff game, a one. I think it's actually a two-leg
Mhm.
a two-leg match against the third place team in League Two. The winner plays in Ligue 1. So Saint Etienne essentially has still a shot to stay in Ligue 1, but I'm sure they're gonna want to get out of that position so they don't have to worry about even thinking about having to stay afloat. And if you're Le Havre, you're trying to get in that spot because at least you have a fighting chance to stay in Ligue 1. But when you look at the teams that are up in the relegation zone, do you see any turnarounds? Do you see anything that could be done for these teams to either get out of the relegation zone or get that 16th place spot?
Yeah, I don't know if I see a lot of turnaround opportunity. I do see a falling opportunity in there, and it's FC Nantes. I mentioned them as being historically good, but they're only 2 points out of relegation right now, sitting at 14th. It's not great looking, to say the least. It's tough. Obviously, Saint Etienne minus 22 in goal differential. They have the second worst behind Montpellier, but Le Havre has an opportunity to kind of jump them. Angers might fall, might stay up, but Nantes they're just not scoring enough goals in my eyes. I look at that team and it's not been good from goal scoring situation. And I don't know if they have enough to keep out of the relegation zone. Like they really have to hope that everybody below them just continues to just be awful. And that's, I hate to say it that way, but that's just how it's kind of going right now, where it is almost whoever can just win 2 games in the remaining. You have 6 points. You will feel pretty good about getting out of the relegation zone. It's just, which seems crazy to think. We have 14 matches left in the season, and I'm talking about one of these teams winning 2 games and feeling good out of the relegation zone. It's just kind of crazy how it works out that way. But yeah, it's tough. I'm not sure whether I see a major turnaround though across the board. I mean, Le Havre, you think they have an opportunity to get out of the relegation zone, just based on goal differential. Just hope some of the balls fall the other way. But yeah, everybody else there, it seems like they're kind of stuck. But I do look at Nantes as a team that might fall, and it might not be good.
Yeah, no, I think especially in that the I guess the beauty, or some cases maybe not the beauty of that second half of the season. Obviously, you go through the gauntlet once again, play every team, and you hope that you can make some adjustments from the previous one. And I think yeah, not this. I mean, the if you guys don't know, Liga does have a lot of goal scoring in it. Um, Maybe it's because it's probably a lot more heavier on one side than it is on the other side when it comes to it. But Yeah, I think for teams like St. Etienne and Le Havre, of what they can adjust to get better results in the second half. And you mentioned Nantes, you mentioned Angers. Those are teams that are not outside of the realm of possibility that maybe in that second half get into a rut of form. Maybe St. Etienne could get the advantage by winning in one of those two. Maybe those are the two wins that they need is to get off of Nantes and Angers, and because the common phrase of all time, this is a 6-pointer opportunity, but for them, that's really what it is. I mean, I think it goes down to that for them. But I feel like we'll see some shakeup. I think Nantes is a good shout. I think that they're probably playing a little bit better than what their record shows, which I mean it's not a really good record, but still,
Yeah.
I think they're playing not as good as people think they are. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the relegation zone.
Yeah, for sure. And as long as it's not Brest, I don't need Brest to fall for no other reason than the comedy that is the Champions League show when
When
Brest comes up.
and one, it's hilarious that a team that's maybe in that not maybe not heavily in that conversation, but could be a name to drop, but it's just a team that's in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is like, oh, they might get relegated, kind of. And it's not to their fault. They had a spectacular season last year, you know. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, and it's a wise old tale that we've seen time and time again. When teams like that probably have no business being on the top part of the table, they get poached, and that's unfortunate for them. But yes, and of course, seeing Michael Richards struggling to not say anything about Brest,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, Thierry Henry, that's an all-time clip, by the way. The whole Brest thing. I like their shape.
Yeah.
You don't have to
They
be
play they
big.
play off each other real well. Yeah.
I would love to see them get exposed.
Yeah. Easily best moment in Champions League pre-game broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting group. I think it's hilarious. The whole Thierry Henry simping over Kate
Yeah.
Smith. Is
Did
it
you get it
Kate
right
Smith?
this time?
I have no Kate Scott. It's Kate Scott. It's Kate
Kate
Scott.
Scott.
She should have kept Abdo. But Kate Scott. There we go. I was about to go with another generic S name again. I think it was the same one I'm mistaken her for. Um, I don't learn. I don't learn. That's one thing you need to learn from this podcast. I never learn. I make stupid jersey bets, okay? Um, which I'm surprised so far that I have not made a bet. Because usually this is the episode where my dumbass.
I'm waiting for it. Honestly, this episode. That's what I can't lie. I'm waiting for this episode.
Oh man, I'm really hoping I don't. Um, but all right. European competitions will throw in the Europa Conference League spot, which is sixth place, and that is Nice with 24 points. Um, and then right above them in the Europa League spot is fifth place Olympic Lyon with 25 points. And I think I'll mention it just because even though technically it's a Champions League spot, but it's actually a Champions League play-in opportunity, which is the fourth place spot, and that's Lille with 27 points. Obviously, depending on how they do in Champions League qualifying, Lille could easily be in the Europa League, depending on how they perform. Um, but yeah, those teams that I mentioned right now, Kelcey, do you see any of them slipping off or maybe improving their position? There's obviously one team with a very interesting scenario on their hands where they're on the top side of the table, but if they don't handle their finances, and I'm talking about Olympic Lyon, um, if they don't fix their budget, they're getting sent down to League Two.
Yeah, I mean that's the big one, right? That's the obvious option. I think the one that's sitting on the outside looking in right now at these positions though is Lens. And I think Lens is an opportunity to slide in where potentially Lyon falls out. I just with the way this league is going this year, if you're not scoring a bunch of goals, I'm concerned. It's kind of how this is working out. And Lyon should have firepower, but sometimes they just go blank and they just cannot put it together. And so that's a situation where I see a chance where Lenses can get in there. I'm not thinking they get into a play-in spot, but given their hot start to the season, you can look at it as a team that might surprise somebody. And I think Lille, I feel comfortable keeping them in a Europa League minimum. Like it doesn't change for me. Nice, I think, can work itself up, but I don't think there's too much shakeup there. I do worry about Lyon, though, for no other reason than they could do everything right and just not take care of their finances and be gone. It's just there's so much hanging over their
And
head.
if they do take care of the finances, you're talking about a fire sale.
Yeah,
Like what they have to do to get back in the black, if you will, is they're gonna have to sell a lot of players, a lot of top prospects. You're talking about Chetgil, probably a name that we're finally gonna see leave Lyon. Amongst other, they just got Tanner Tessman. I mean, do they try to get what they can for Tanner Tessman? Um, it's an interesting scenario for them because like you need to sell your players, but at the same time, you need to keep enough players to be competitive. Because obviously, and I mean, Lyon, well known for their academy. I mean, most of the big names that you hear, Tolisso, Lacazette, and all that, that's homegrown players that they developed. And so Karim Benzema, probably,
yep.
I guess in recency, that's like their biggest name to come out of there. But
And let's not forget, this is fallout from the Lacazette purchase that they didn't spend the money immediately. They spent the money a season and a half later, and so now you have that season gap of finances. So now the FFP comes in, and it's like, oh well, you that big money in has been taken away, so now you have big money out 2 seasons later. That's how financials come into play here. It's completely messing them up.
exactly, yeah, it's completely and utterly insane, the situation there for Leon. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Leon's it's gonna suck if that team improves their position on the table, and then because they just couldn't get their finances figured out, someone's getting moved up to either a Europa League or a Champions League spot, or maybe the Conference League, depending on how they performed. Um, and Leon is just gonna have to sit. Or would it also be hilarious if UEFA's just like, yeah, they could be in the competition while wearing the League Two badge, the patches on their jerseys.
I mean, wouldn't be the first time we saw something weird like that.
That's true. That's very true. Now the
Look at
teams,
you, Juventus.
yeah. Now the guaranteed Champions League teams, we got AS Monaco with 30 points, Olympique Marseille with 30 points as well. Props to Roberto De Zerbi, even though I think he tried to quit at some point during this run. Um, that was interesting. Yeah. When you look at these two teams that are guaranteed in the Champions League, do you see any of them maybe slip up? I mean, obviously Martial kind of running it a little bit hot. You know, Mason Greenwood kind of having quite the moments right now over there in Martial. Even now, all of a sudden, he's backing away from Jamaica because now he's trying to say, "I think England needs to call me up again."
Yeah, I don't know if either falls off. I do think both compete heavily. I specifically look at the opportunity that Paul Pogba is coming back, and one of those main teams linked to him is Marseille. And if they have a say in this, and they can bring Pogba to Marseille, him with Diego Payet, along with the rest of that attacking players, Marseille is a hard team to just say no, they're going to fall off at that point. It's supposed to be interesting to see what if they make any moves in January that can set them kind of over. But yeah, Paul Pogba is the one I'm kind of highlighting as far as a potential coming into the French league and potentially changing the entire landscape here, and not for a bad thing, just like in a positive way. And we'll have to see though. But if he does land somewhere in France, it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Now, yeah, I do agree with that. And the front runner to win Ligue 1, obviously, we haven't mentioned this team yet, and of course, it's Paris Saint-Germain with 37 points. Also, should probably point out they're undefeated, have yet to have a loss on the loss column. 11 wins, 4 draws. Probably the most uneventful undefeated team that because let's be honest, when Bayer Leverkusen was undefeated, everyone's like, holy shit, this team's still undefeated when we were at the halfway point. No one's saying that for PSG right now. Is there a difference in that because is it because it's PSG or is it
No,
because
it's
it's
because they
Ligue 1
lost
and
three
nobody
times
cares?
in Champions League.
Yeah.
That's what makes this team. That's what makes this team different from Leverkusen. Is Leverkusen was undefeated across all competitions,
Except one match.
Except for the very end. Right now, PSG sucks in Champions League. That's just like how it is. Looking at that table, I mean, they're 25th out of teams potentially moving forward in Champions League. Like, that's just not good enough if you are PSG with all this extra money to spend, and you can dominate the French league, but you can do that with your academy players. Your academy players make up the next tier of the French national team. And so if you're not winning Champions League matches as PSG, you are failing in the season. I always think of the Zlatan commentary that PSG is too good for France. That may be the case. Maybe that team is too good for the French league. The problem is they're not good enough for the other leagues because they tend to rest on their laurels in this situation. And while they are dominant in the French league, this isn't the first time we've seen a PSG team go 11-4, 11 wins, 4 draws, or 12 wins, 3 draws up into the midway point. They might win this league by 20 points, but the difference is they might crash out before the knockout stage in the Champions League. And you can't have that if you're PSG. And so while the league side of things, it's always goes smooth sailing for the most part, it's everything else that makes PSG not as attractive for like international recognition today, other than the fact they have money. Everybody knows they have money, and that's what attracts them. That's what attracts players to them. It's much like going overseas, going to the Middle East. Anytime there's a big money splash, it's like, oh, well, it's probably PSG. But what does that do for a player? We just saw Neymar crash out basically after going to PSG. Messi went there for a stop before he went to Inter Miami, and he spent more time at Inter Miami playing than he did at PSG already. So, PSG is kind of a stopover for stars nowadays. It's not like it once was, where you had the Ronaldinhos of the world in their prime playing for you before moving on to Barcelona. These guys are coming at the end of their career. So, yeah, PSG, while they are good in the league, never going to take that away from them. For them, it's easy to be good in the league. You have to try harder to suck in the French league if you're PSG than you have to try harder to win games, it feels like. So, yeah, I think that's the big difference here. It's just a completely like apples to oranges type of comparison to what we saw with Leverkusen, where Leverkusen is not a big dog. That would be like Nice going undefeated in this in Ligue 1. Then we could have that conversation like, oh, this is impressive. But like, it's PSG. It's expected.
I think that's exactly why, and I agree wholeheartedly. Teams to note, I mean, the one that I was going to mention, I already brought it up, is Olympique Lyon's situation where if they don't get their finances handled, they're going to get relegated. And all that they're doing right now, which obviously we just mentioned, it's an Europa League position that they're currently in and potentially could improve on it. It will all be for naught, especially if UEFA decides like we can't have a second division team in our tournament. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. So I think Olympique Lyon, that's going to be especially going into January. Once we're in the January transfer window, like who's getting bought out of Olympique Lyon, because there is a lot of players that did eventually come back to Olympique Lyon. Obviously Lacazette is one of the names that everyone thinks of, and then Tolisso, another name that did return to Olympique Lyon. What does this team do to fix their finances, but at the same time keep a competitive team out there to get a good position to see some more up? Because I mean, the irony of all this, they get money if they're in the Champions League, but then they're out of it if they don't get into. It's a very catch-22.
Yeah, and it ruins some teams, right? When you become so reliant on you have to be in the Champions League spots, and then you miss it a year. We've seen it. Everton was a perfect example of that for so many years. They were in that 5th place, 6th place team. They were making Europa Leagues. They were making Champions League play-ins. And then all of a sudden they missed it one year. And now look at where we see Everton. I mean, it is a downhill slope. It's not the first team, but it won't be the last either. To see somebody like Lyon, who is a big team, who becomes reliant on that extra money, and then they crash out. And let's not forget, Lyon was one of those teams that was projected to be part of that Super League originally. They did get rejected, and then when the third alternative proposal came out, they were included again because of the namesake. But it's like, yeah, there's a reason they were trying to do a part of that stuff, and it's because of the money that could come in. So it's tough that Leon is there, but yeah, I mean, it got to be better. You got to have better ownership if you want to succeed in today's modern football.
Which is, they are also owned by an American, so
I said what I said.
Yeah, not. I mean, unless your name is Todd Bowley right now, you're not. It's not a great time to be an American owner. Which I don't. I think Chelsea. Well,
I mean, Fenway Sports Group isn't doing too bad.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Congratulations, by the way, of being on top of the league for right now.
It's okay. It's my proudest moment of 2024.
But what's your any teams of note for you for Ligue 1?
I'm interested to see what Rhyme and Ren do. That sounds so silly, but they're both at a 0 goal difference, and they're 10th and 12th in the league. So dead center in the league. You're scoring 20 goals a game, or 20 goals so far in the season. You have more goals scored than the 7th place team, and yet they're both sitting middling in the table. I'm interested to see if they can figure it out and get some wins instead of draws, or if they plummet. I mean, we see it every year. There's a team right there in the middle part of the table who maybe loses out on a couple games here and there, and then all of a sudden they shoot up in the second half, and you see it the other way. They're in the middle of the table and they just fall off. And so those two teams I look at as potential to go either way, and I'm intrigued to see which way they go. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I think that Rennes and Reims, I think, is going to be also two teams that I feel like do fairly well to like stay at least in that top half of the table. So I am also intrigued by that for them. Yeah, as far as any like huge shakeups, I don't really see it. I think Ligue 1 has been pretty straightforward every single year. I mean, yeah, Lille had that one very hilarious magical run that they did, which I always like to look at that the champions of Ligue 1, and there's just Lille right there in the middle that ruined the streak.
Led by
for
an
PSG.
American and a Canadian.
Led by an American and a Canadian.
Go figure. That's what it took for a team to upset PSG.
Especially, not only that American also used to play for PSG, so another wrinkle to that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ligue 1, I think it's a good league. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it's a terrible league, but if you want to be that soccer hipster that is gonna be like, I knew that guy before anybody else knew. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was all excited that Lacazette was like a little well kept secret for me for such a long time. And then, because I was like, I know this guy's a baller. Clearly, that didn't pan out how I thought it was going to pan out. But at least I could, when everyone was like, who's this Alexander Lacazette guy? I was like, I'm glad you asked. It's so
true, though. There's always one or two players, those darlings, that sneak through in a league. And I think they always sneak through the French league is the one that I see the most, where despite it being what you said, a Power 5 or a Big 5 or whatever we want to call them, league, it seems like they have, outside of PSG, they always have the most unknowns attached to them. There's a lot of players that come through it, and you're like, I don't know how they're going to do. I've never seen anything about them. And the next thing you know, they're potentially a superstar or they're a flame out real quick and in a hurry.
Essentially, that was Kamavinga. And so,
yeah. So you just never know. I mean, really, you just never know with the French league. But it's funny because obviously, despite PSG being the top dog, they really suck at turning out players that are from their academy. Like, they have good academy products. They just don't stay at their academy because they just end up buying people and sending those academy kids elsewhere.
Yeah, man, you guys really messed up with Musa. I just want to point that out. Legend of the game, and you guys did nothing with him. I'm very pissed off about that. I'm pissed for you, Musa. I love you, Musa. But yeah, man, that's Ligue 1. It's going to be interesting how that league transpires in the second half of the season, what adjustments happens. And I mean, I feel like PSG might lose. They're going to lose a game at some point. It might, I don't know when, but it's going to happen. At least that's how I feel. That PSG is just it's going to slip up at one point. Maybe when they have a very important Champions League playing round that they have to, focus more on, things like that. But
They got 2 more match days before they get eliminated there, so you never know.
Oh yeah, that's right. Now it's 8 games, not 6. Which, by the way, how do we feel? How do you feel about the Champions League now that we're 6 matches in now?
I feel like this new setup takes away the drama of it. Like I've been less invested in the group stage than I've ever been, and that disappoints me.
I think I don't know why it's a bummer for me, but like I don't like that Thursday is now a Champions League match day. I don't know why I don't like it.
Well, I mean, there was always a match. There was always 2 match days. It was always a Tuesday and Wednesday, and you alternate, and like that made sense. That was simple, and it was really simple because one group played on both days, and it's like, okay, this makes sense. Or you could have Group B, C type of thing. Like it just, my brain was wrapped around the previous 4-team groups so well that this whole new setup with 6 teams to a group and there's a league table. It's just like I don't really care anymore about the group stage. I'll come back to you when it's the knockouts.
UEFA just needs to remember, like, hey, Thursday is, and I mean, obviously it's because they expanded also the Champions League as well. But I mean, like, like Thursday is Europa League, Europa League and Europa Conference. Or I honestly have no idea when Europa Conference.
Europa Conference should be a Friday game. I think that makes sense. Friday, Saturdays, like kind of like I treat it like academy games. Like treat them at the end of the week. Don't really care.
That would suck for all those teams that didn't have a match. It's like match day -1.
Yeah,
it's watching the Bishop Sycamore schedule. Just having games back to back. But yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. But I'm kind of liking it. I mean, as a Madridista, I probably shouldn't be liking it because it's not looking great for them. But we'll see what happens as things transpire over there. I'm sure they'll get there. Hopefully, they get 2 wins in these next 2 matches. I think there maybe some form can come into play. Maybe Mbappe can get like a little easy. I can't make a penalty, so I don't really know. Really don't know.
Doesn't get much easier than champion or than a penalty.
Yeah, that's rough.
Not that scoring in the pro level is easy, but that's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, Yeah,
I mean, I don't really mind. I gotta be honest, I don't really mind the Champions League considering I'm a Liverpool fan. So
yeah, dogs. Everything's all hunky dory for you guys.
Undefeated. It's what happens.
Yeah. But all right, Bundesliga, man. So before we get into Bundesliga, I just gotta say, now everyone can shut up about Bayern Munich. That's all I gotta say. I mean, I'm not a Bayern Munich fan by any means, but the comments that I had for, I think it was like Hansi Flick coming back to Bayern Munich, when everyone's like, Bayern Munich's washed, they're done, they're trash. They're not, they're not going to win the Bundesliga anymore. That team's cooked. The team with the highest pay, you're telling me the team that has the most money in Germany, that team is just never going to win again. I pointed out, it took a team to go undefeated to win the Bundesliga. And Kelcey, you were actually the one that brought it up. Bayern Munich had scored more points than they did the year before, which they won the Bundesliga that year. So it literally took a team to just do something historical to dethrone Bayern Munich and end the streak.
Yeah, and Bayern Munich responds the only way Bayern Munich knows how, and I'm sure we're going to say this again in a minute, but they're setting records their own self. Just like, all right, fine, you beat us with a record-setting performance last year. Fine, we're going to be twice as good, and we're going to set our own records, like goal scoring, goals against. Like this team is just. We talked about this in the build-up in the preseason, like what we expect from the Bundesliga, and we both kind of had the same idea. It's like if Bayern Munich can stay healthy, there's no reason they shouldn't come back as champions. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like the only thing that ever concerned me was health.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They're healthy, by the way.
They're healthy. They went and got Olise. This team was like, oh, our roster's old? Okay. Like, that's literally what Bayern Munich just was like, all right, cool. Take Matthias de Ligt. We don't care about that guy.
It's crazy. Honestly,
also,
that turnaround.
Mind you, they were trying to get Araujo, but I mean that didn't happen, obviously. But
and Musiala is also healthy and he looks like the part of the Cam that he's a superstar Cam. Like, he looks that guy looks like that guy again.
Yeah. So, I mean, all right. Well, we'll start from ascending order then. We'll start up top. First place, obviously, leading the charge to be the champions of Bundesliga. In first place, we got Bayern Munich with 33 points so far in the season. Is it finally going to happen for Harry Kane? Do you think we're finally going to see Harry Kane with a trophy in his hands? Or I guess not really a trophy, a shield. But
a champion of a league trophy. Honestly, I want to say yes. They're 4 points clear. But the fact of the matter is Leverkusen's not a slouch this year. They've lost one game and drawn 2 more. That's the difference between the two. It's an incredibly tight race. Bayern still shows small gaps. I don't think it's enough to unseat them. Let's just put it that way. I do think this is a Harry Kane situation where he has an opportunity to win. But I've always questioned Harry Kane in big games. Can he be the guy that just steps up and shows that he's as good as he's supposed to be? One of the best goal scorers in this generation. But like in big games, when granted he doesn't get a lot of opportunities, in the few opportunities he's had, he doesn't necessarily perform well. And so I hope this is a situation for him where they don't have to have that moment, so we don't have to find out. But yeah, I think Bayern Munich should win the league. There is a frost nipping at the hills, if you will.
All right. How much % are you giving it to the roster versus Vincent Kompany?
I am 99.9% on the roster side, and if I could go less than 0.1%, I'm going less than 0.1% Vincent Kompany. With that said, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think their roster is incredibly good, how young they are. But I will say, Vincent Kompany, to bring that together and just tactically make the right decisions, I give him the respect for that.
He also was gifted a very loaded roster.
Yeah, so good. They're just so good. I'm not going to take it away from Kompany by any means, but it's definitely the roster.
I mean, I think the same approach, the same tactics that he applied at Burnley, and obviously that panned out the way it panned out. Once again, what a vertical shift in career. It's just going from on a team that got relegated to now you got the opportunity to just buy whoever you want and have this star-studded lineup that you have zero connection to. So that's also a very interesting thing that Bayern Munich went for.
Shout out to Aaron Danks, his assistant coach. Dude was at Aston Villa before Middlesbrough. He is an unsung hero for Vincent Kompany. He's the tactical guy for Vincent Kompany. It's just worth giving him that shout where this is an academy guy who used to be an academy coach and just slowly worked his way up the ranks. And he works perfectly, absolutely perfectly with Vincent Kompany in all the right ways.
Okay. No, and I agree with that. But all right, Champions League, the teams that are in the other top 4 spots for a Champions League spot. We got second place Bayer Leverkusen with 29 points. So not that far away.
No.
It's literally a loss and a draw away from Bayern Munich.
Two draws and a loss. Yeah.
My math is bad. So,
no, I mean it is 4. You're right. It is 4 points. But yeah.
But to jump over them. I get it. So they're not. They're if you really want to say it, they're 2 games away from jumping over Bayern Munich, and obviously Bayern Munich is gonna have the slip up. It's probably against Hoffenheim. For some reason, it's always Hoffenheim
or Dortmund. I mean, those seem to be the 2.
Yeah, they're closer. How did that pan out? It did not pan out very well for Dortmund. It did. It was bad. It was. I remember that. That was ugly. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting now being me just watching them, and I'm just like, wow, this. Sheesh. But hey, Gio Reyna's back. He scored a goal on his return, so that's positive.
Yeah,
as long as he can stay healthy, and that's a big maybe. Third place, Eintracht Frankfurt with 27 points, and then in fourth place, also with 27 points, RB Leipzig. When you look at these teams that are essentially, I would say, competing or hoping, depending on, I don't know what you want to use, compete or hoping to compete for the Bundesliga title. Obviously, I think Bayer Leverkusen is still the name to watch. I think, despite being second right now, Xabi Alonso clearly is doing good things with this team. I haven't really been paying attention to them in Champions League, so I don't really know if they're good or bad. I just know that there's always rumors that Real Madrid are going after Florian Wirtz. The rumors that John Dentá is going to Barcelona, which is obviously the always what comes with the territory of having a good team that probably shouldn't be there, is that everyone's trying to pluck all the players that are on there. And obviously Xabi Alonso also rumored to, I don't know, I don't think Arne Slot's losing his job anytime soon with Liverpool, and I doubt Don Ancelotti is going to be retiring anytime soon. I think, and for the fans that are saying that Ancelotti should be fired, that man gets as much leeway as he possibly can, and I will stand on that island that there's no way in hell that Real Madrid will fire that man. It will literally take Ancelotti to step down from the role.
Yeah,
or
that's
if he has
accurate.
a second unless he just has 2 terrible seasons, which
that's not happening.
Yeah, which is very hard.
Again,
I think,
big money rosters. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think unless Ancelotti decides to step down, I think kind of similar to Sir Alex Ferguson, where they leave on their own terms. Even Jurgen Klopp is another example. Just he's going to leave on his own terms. Real Madrid, I mean, we are talking about Perez, but Perez ain't stupid. Like
he learned from his mistake once,
which was also letting Ancelotti go.
Exactly.
I thought that was idiotic. Even though Zinedine Zidane, great job, literally just copied what Ancelotti did, which great job. Good call.
Figured it out quickly.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, the small things. But no, I think you're right. I don't think he goes anywhere. I think Xabi is just happy at Leverkusen for now.
Yeah, I don't think there's a job right now that's enticing enough for him. Like it's got to be a Real Madrid or a Liverpool. I think he has to have maybe even a Real Sociedad. But
I know he's not going to Man United, so I don't have to worry about that happening at least.
Yeah, that's a. Do you think Ruben? I mean, obviously this isn't Premier League talk, but do you think Ruben Amorim's like realizing even though he just pulled, which is it an upset? Is Man City, Man United an upset, or is it like just 2 teams that are really down bad? Finally, one gets a win.
I think it's more just it's just a rivalry game.
Okay.
So I think it gets a little bit less of a upset tag to it. But with that said, I think anybody who says Man United was supposed to win that game is crazy. So I like.
But
it's an upset, but it's like a very loose term of upset.
So so just for you guys' reference, me and Jose, we recorded the day before, and I made a reference to a meme that is pretty explicit, but essentially it's that everybody gets a turn with Man City, and it's starting to see more and more like that's happening now. Once again, Twitter, I don't know what to do, because if it's not sports related, it's porn. That's all. It's
so bad.
It's one or it's like not even in between. Like it's one or the other,
it's political. Like it's political. it's porn or it's sports.
Like I was like, I don't search porn. I don't search porn on Twitter. Like I mean, I'm a guy just like anybody else, but I mean, like, I don't search for porn on Twitter.
I will say this, and this is going to catch some flack probably. If you're a lady and you have a guy who's on Twitter, don't judge him if he sees some random ladies' bits on Twitter. I swear it's just a thing now. Like, there's so many random ads that pop up. Like, don't judge the man.
Yeah, like there's this. Oh, man, I saw a clip.
It's not his fault. Now, unless it is his fault, in which case it's his fault. But it's not
of some woman who chose to try to sleep with 100 guys in one day, and I was just like, why is that even an attempt? Like
some records weren't meant to be broken.
Oh God, but I mean,
or even attempted to be broken.
I mean, more power to you. I mean, but yeah, if it's not sports, if it's not politics, it's porn, and And like it, I can't. It's not now. I can't just go out in public and just check out a Twitter feed because I don't know if something's gonna pop up, and so like now I'm just like it's a dangerous game now, Twitter.
Yeah, just delete them all. That's where I'm
Every,
at now.
it has everything apparently. It's insane.
Everything
But
and then some.
and that's Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, that's Bayer Leverkusen.
But I guess looking at Eintracht Frankfurt and RB Leipzig, do you see any chance for them?
No, but at the same time, let's not forget Eintracht Frankfurt in December 23 is the thing that set Bayern Munich back far enough that Leverkusen was able to take that edge in that 5-1 drumming of Bayern Munich. So with that said, Eintracht Frankfurt probably doesn't do much, but I just leave out hope that they could possibly upset the apple cart long enough to get Leverkusen a leg up on Munich. And this is kind of the run the run we see in the Bundesliga. There's always a team that quote unquote keeps up with Bayern at the end of the season. It's just Bayern doesn't stumble enough. If they can stumble twice, it gives an opportunity for somebody like Leverkusen, who is only 4 points behind, to get up there. But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be Eintracht or it's gonna be Leipzig that can cause a stumble enough for Bayern. But at the same time, if there's gonna be two teams, they're my two likely choices.
I'm just telling you, one of those teams is going to be Hoffenheim. At this point, I have watched plenty of Bundesliga.
Or Bochum. Don't forget VfL Bochum.
Yeah, any team in some sort of shade of blue. Like I mean that it's going to do it.
Shade of blue and bottom 5-6 teams in the league
without fail. It's just it has been without fail. When it comes down to it, but you're right, and I think it is kind of. I mean, Bayern Munich is Thanos, right? Like you should aim for the head. Like that's literally what this team is.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree. But yeah, they got to catch Bayern Munich slipping twice, and I agree with that. If Bayer Leverkusen is hoping to repeat this season, they're gonna have to keep getting their results, which I mean clearly they are, minus the draw and the draws and the losses. But if Bayern Munich does slip, they gotta be able to capitalize on it. And I think that return leg between Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen is going to be very telling because once again, insert stupid 6-pointer opportunity quote, but it is what it is exactly that. And then hope that Bayern Munich slips up again. So and that is that's a very huge point. But the other European competitions in the 5th place spot, SC Freiburg with 24 points. And in the Europa Conference League spot, we got 6th place VfB Stuttgart with 23 points. How are you liking that setup right now? Or do you see Stuttgart getting a chance to jump over Freiburg?
If they can figure out how to stop giving up goals, that would be a good start for Stuttgart. Giving up 24 goals so far, which is crazy because they've scored 29, which is the fourth highest in the Bundesliga. Oh, sorry, 5th highest was Wolfsburg down there. But yeah, no, Stuttgart's a team I think could jump Freiburg. They just have to figure out how to stop giving up goals, and they can do that. I also look at Mainz, who is just outside of this at 7th, as a team that might slide in if Freiburg falls down. Because again, teams that need to, in the Bundesliga, you need to score goals as well, just like in Serie A or in Liga. And if you're not scoring goals, you're going to be hoping that your defense holds tight. And it's not the old Germany type of football anymore where you can just build the wall. It's very much a thing where you have to score first. And Freiburg is not necessarily the best at scoring right now. So, I think Freiburg is the one I look at as possibly the mover here, and not in a good way. Like probably going to be falling down type of mover. So don't be surprised to see Stuttgart and Mainz fighting for that 5th, 6th spot.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, Mainz, one of my favorite teams to say in the Bundesliga. But all right, the relegation zone in 16th place, the team with the play-in opportunity, because Bundesliga also has a play-in, is FC Heidenheim 1846 with 10 points. 10 points.
I didn't laugh at that, I promise.
It gets so much worse.
Oh, it does.
In 17th place, we got Holstein Kiel with 5 points. Yes, that's right. You heard me right. 5 points, a win and 2 draws in there, and a bunch of losses. And then it gets so much worse. 18th place VfL Bochum with 3 points. Are those 3 wins? I mean, is that a win or 3 draws? I don't know.
It's 3 draws. 3 draws.
Yeah, so pretty bad.
Yeah. You remember that thing I said about scoring goals? 11 goals on the season so far for Bochum. Giving up 35. That's tough. I found my team to beat Bayern at a random. I said it earlier. I'm going to stick by it. VfL Bochum is that team now. No, this is crazy. This bottom 3 is
this your jersey bet?
No, God no. No, I'm not stupid. I don't make jersey bets. We know that.
Yeah, that's oh my God, that is super bad. Yeah, wow. Do you see anybody improving their chances here?
The best one is Heidenheim. I mean, having 10 points gives them an opportunity. They're 1 point ahead of the safe zone, or 1 point down from the safe zone. They just have to beat FC St. Pauli.
Which I was going to mention that team. And the reason why I was going to mention that team is because of the fact that St. Pauli, this was the team that had the young manager that now is the manager for Brighton, who is technically from Houston, Texas, but he was also German, and so can't really claim him. I'm gonna claim him.
Claim him.
An American coach that Brighton wanted. But yeah, it kind of, once again, is when teams are doing good, they get poached. Paulie didn't even get a chance to like see how this season's gonna look with their coach because Brighton was like, well, Roberto De Zerbi's gone. All right, let's get that guy.
Yeah. Oh, this guy's winning with a really bad team. He's coming here.
Yeah, so that's what happened. But yeah, St. Pauli, you mentioned them. Yeah, they're not doing any better than Heidenheim is either. So,
well, at least Heidenheim scoring goals. That's the difference here. St. Pauli is tied with 11 goals as the lowest goal scoring team in the Bundesliga with Bochum. Difference is they've only given up 19, whereas Heidenheim has given up more than 30. So, yeah, Heidenheim probably has the best opportunity. Again, this goes into, can you stop letting goals in long enough to win a game, potentially?
It is insane. But, yeah, any teams of note to you? I mean, we already mentioned my team, which was St. Pauli. I think that they're not that far away from the bottom, and that battle for that 16th place spot is going to be very intriguing. To say the least.
I'm intrigued by just in general the battle for 5th and 6th place. Between 11th place and 5th place, there is a 3-point difference. So there are 7 teams in that range. 7 teams in that range that could be into a Euro or Europa League matchup. And that's crazy. One of those is Dortmund, though. I look at Dortmund as kind of that team that I just wonder what they're going to do. Obviously, Gio being back there, maybe getting playing time now is a big impact for them for the future, because that's kind of really one of the big pieces they've always missed is that connector between their back line and their front 2 or 1 or 3, whatever they decide to run. And it's with Gio, he seems to be comfortable in that spot for Dortmund. So can that be enough to get them over the hump? Can he stay healthy? Can their team stay healthy long enough to get them into a play-in spot or a Europa League spot? I don't know, but there's so many teams there where you're just looking at them like somebody's got to make a move here. There's no way this stays status quo with the 3-point difference between 7 teams. So yeah, there's just in general the battle for 5th and 6th place is crazy.
Yeah, and I think Borussia Dortmund is another team that everyone should keep an eye on, just because of I have no idea what happened here.
Yeah.
It is insane how everything has transpired for them. But, I mean, granted, they were gifted a Champions League spot because they were the only team in the top 4 in the Champions League last year that was in 5th. They were basically in a Europa League position. Yeah. And then because Real Madrid already secured their spot for the Champions League, and so was Bayern Munich, and I believe also PSG, all of them had their Champions League spot positions already covered. So they were like, all right, Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, magic happens sometimes. you just gotta turn it into more than just a middling league position at the next year. You get money, and then it's like, all right, we're not going to spend it. What are you doing?
Exactly, man. So it's gonna be interesting with the Bundesliga. Um, do you think Bayern Munich is gonna slip up enough for Bayer Leverkusen to poach on it?
I don't think so. I really don't. It's hard to say they would, just because they're so good. I mean, that team is just so good, top to bottom. We talked about PSG on the other in Ligue undefeated. If PSG and Bayern match up today, I'm taking Bayern 10 out of 10 times. Like, that's how good Bayern is right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they slip up enough, but one injury to the wrong person at the wrong time can impact the next 4 matches. So that's always something to keep in mind, especially nowadays where injuries are so prevalent. I don't think they do, but barring a major injury type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast, here to tell you guys about Canada Dips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip, using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Canada Dip CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BellyUp20 at CanadaDipCBD.com. Once again, BellyUp20 at CanadaDipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canada Dips for being a great partner of BellyUpSports. But all right, the final league that we're going to cover with Kelcey, and that is the Serie A, probably the most intriguing league this season. Yeah, so we'll kick things off with the relegation battle. In 18th place, in 20th place, we have Venezia with 10 points. Gives you kind of perspective after you heard what the Bundesliga was at.
Yeah.
Very interesting jerseys. Obviously, Gianluca Busio. Do you see potentially Busio making a move out of Venezia if relegation happens yet again for him over there?
I don't think he's there yet. And that's nothing to do with his talent, because he can be talented. But talent means nothing when you can't showcase that talent. And I think that's what we're seeing with him, because it's not happening on the U.S. side, and it's not happening on the club side, per se, to the same level like we've seen. You mentioned Tanner Tessman earlier, that he was able to kind of showcase his talents. Or you've seen with players getting poached off of very poor teams, but that player has been like outstanding every single step of the way. If it wasn't for him, this team wouldn't have 10 points type of stuff. Like, it happens regularly. I don't think he's that guy on the team, but I don't think he could make a move, but it's not going to be like a big money move or a major step up. It's going to be kind of a lateral step. Mm-hmm. Like, he could be the guy that just stays at a potentially relegation level zone Serie A team next year. And that's not a terrible thing, because, Serie A is pretty regular for its turnover into the league, but it's not usually the same teams every year going up and down. There usually is 2 new and then 1 same. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see he's making a big move right now, but at the same time, that could change in 6 months' time, really.
That's true. 19th place also with 10 points is Monza. I have really nothing else to say, man.
No, Monza's
yeah.
Monza.
Yeah, that's really it, honestly, like, for me, my knowledge when it comes to like the mid to bottom teams in the Serie A it's pretty low. Obviously, if it wasn't for the fact that Gianluca Busio played in Venezia, like, I would have no interest in Venezia. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with the Serie A, especially because I have to cover so many leagues, and so sometimes you got to pick and choose who and where you want to be focusing on. But yeah,
here's a name for you, Daniel Maldini. That's who's on Monza. So Paolo Maldini,
the only Maldini that can't stay his whole career in AC Milan.
Yep. Yeah. So
also Cam. So
yeah, brother to Christian Maldini.
That's going to be the
and
multi.
Milan Duric. Those are the two kind of big names.
Okay.
And
then
Milan Duric is 34 years old. So.
yeah, that's a name. In 18th place, we got Cagliari with 14 points. I mean, same question I always ask you about the teams in the relegation zone. Do you see anybody making a big push in that second half? That second half of the season with the adjustments that we all hope to see them apply.
Man, I don't know if anybody is getting out of this bottom three in Serie A. And that's not to say that they're not good enough to get out of it. They're kind of capped by a Verona team right now who can score a lot of goals. And at the same time, they give up a good chunk of goals. So that's not helping them. But against the bottom three, they're exceedingly good. So they have to somehow jump Verona to get out of that position. And I don't think Verona's really doing enough to get themselves dropped into the relegation zone. Obviously, Como could drop in there. I hope not, just because Como being like Como around that, like, you kind of hope they stick around.
Fabregas's team.
Yeah. Also, it's a really beautiful area down there. So, but yeah, no, yeah.
And I
don't know.
Rafael Varane is what, like an advisor now with the club.
With Como, I think that sounds correct, like a player advisor, something like that. Sergio Roberto.
He was supposed to be a player, and then he retired.
Yep.
And now I think he has some sort of role with the team.
Yeah, they also have Alberto Moreno. So 2 Liverpool guys hanging out there.
Interesting.
I'm all for it.
But yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think it's very straightforward. Unfortunately, there's no play-in opportunity for the 18th place team. It just is what it is, man. But all right, the European competitions in that European Conference League spot, we got Juventus in 6th place, which Kelcey did mention earlier, with 28 points this year. And then the Europa League spot, we got in 5th place Lazio with 31 points. A very interesting team this year. I think Lazio has intrigued me so far this year, has been fairly competitive. I think able to stand toe-to-toe, which I'll be honest, man, Serie A has been very weird the way the year started, where it was like a shit ton of ties. But Lazio has been very intriguing, a team that you see them do fairly well, but then eventually kind of go back to where they usually belong in the table, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, a team that only has 1 draw compared to everybody else. The problem is they've given up 23 goals on the season, which out of the top 6 teams is nearly double the next closest.
Yes.
Yeah, so Lazio, I mean, while a good team, they're scoring more goals than all but 2 of the teams. Atalanta and Inter are higher than them, but beyond those 2, it's literally they are the next highest goal scorer, but they're just giving up so many, and so they're going to win or they're going to lose in dramatic fashion. It looks like so.
Yeah, that is a good point. Do you see Lazio falling off?
Yeah, I do. Juventus has 10 draws, on the other hand. So you got to think Juventus in the second half of the season could turn some of those draws into wins and usurp them at the very least. There's also a couple teams that are outside looking in that I think have an opportunity, like Milan, Udinese potentially getting in there if they can figure out how to score goals on the other side. So, yeah, but I think Milan's one of those teams that could easily jump into this top 5-6 range.
Do you see Juventus improving their position?
They should.
Riding off of the fact that like Tim Way and Weston McKennie, which being that Juventus is now where we're at least in the discussion, how did you feel about that part? And obviously the Christian Pulisic documentary which I think it's a little too early to be doing a documentary on a 26-year-old, which I get. He's a lot of people view him as the true U.S. soccer legend that's going to hopefully surpass Landon Donovan, which, I mean, I don't think he's that far away, which it's not that impressive of a feat, to be honest. But I haven't seen the documentary, but obviously they had like that little clip about the frustration and the bias towards American players over there in Europe. How'd you feel about what was said, and then like having to hear those Brits, even though they have not done fairly well against the U.S. in the World Cup, the arrogance that they have against the Americans?
Yeah, that's no surprise. It's going to be that way until the U.S. wins a World Cup. For being honest about it, like for England to do it, it's just like kind of Big Brother, you know. Even though, fun fact, the U.S. has a World Cup over England, but that doesn't count, right? Because that was the 1960s, 1950s, whatever. Not a World Cup championship, but a World Cup victory over England at the time. 2 World Cup victories now over England. But yeah, it's like get used to it, Americans. We're little brother when it comes to soccer. We're big brother in every other sport. You just kind of have to deal with it. Part of that documentary, the one thing I didn't hate though was that he was honest about the difference in the leagues. Him playing in England, it was very biased versus him playing in Italy. He feels a lot more opportunity. And the reason why, and we've talked about this a couple times with American players, it takes a trailblazer to really set a path for American players to be accepted. And in the Bundesliga, or sorry, not Bundesliga, in Serie A, there have been many Americans. Alexi Lawless being one of the first to kind of drive the path forward. Gucci Onyewu, let's not forget, drove the path forward, and ironically, both at AC Milan. And now you have what you see: Weston, Tim Weah, Yunus Musa, and Pulisic all in Milan or Juventus. Like, you see a path forward for Americans, where in the EPL, it's Josie who flamed out, Landon who was there for 6 months, who flamed out in Germany, and then Clint Dempsey, who was about as accepted as you or I would be in a long distance sprinting competition. It's just like you just kind of have to accept it if you're an American. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean I get that, and obviously the part I think the thing that's a little bit different with Christian Pulisic versus Weston McKennie is there hasn't been any doubt of Christian Pulisic's role with AC Milan. Some people are viewing him as the best player in AC Milan right now, which if you look at their place in the table, probably not necessarily a bragging point. But whereas Weston McKennie, who I feel like year in year out has had his moments with Juventus, has showed out for Juventus, has consecutively earned a starting role with Juventus, and then every offseason, and he mentioned every offseason he's always the guy that's getting rumored to be shipping out because he doesn't fit to this new coach's. Which also Juventus, that's probably the other thing that we should probably mention, how many coaches they have gone through.
Yeah, crazy.
Since the era of them winning consecutive Serie A titles, but it always seems to be Weston McKennie being the odd man out, but then Weston McKennie showcases what he can do,
putting them together,
does a little Wingardium
goals.
Leviosa,
yeah.
and next he's back in the good graces of Juventus, which I think could be a little bit just made up. I think fans, not necessarily fans, but just pundits wanting to just say Weston McKennie is going to get shipped out for the sake of just like, I know what's going to get attention, which is going to be pissed off Americans that they're not getting the love and respect for the sport. But the thing I will say from the English fans that were like, making fun of us because we call soccer, even though you guys created that word.
Yeah, it's your word. Sorry.
And all that. And I'm not going to go down to the history of football, but the arrogance that I can't name a single American. I get the American coach thing. I get that one. You can't name an American manager, even though Jesse Marsch did keep Leeds United afloat, and then obviously did not in the second time. But yeah, I mean, like you mean to tell me you can't name Christian Pulisic, you can't name Weston McKennie, like you can't name one American Tim Howard. You can't name one American player.
Brad Friedel, Casey Keller,
Landon Donovan. Like, I mean,
I know Arsenal fans can name an American, and they're not going to be happy about naming them, but they can name them.
Yeah, so I'm like, you can't name one American, and it's just insane to me that like it's the arrogance, and then obviously they were trying to. The thing that I think for me that kind of like at least irks me a little bit is just that like it's just that they pretend that America isn't as culturally different
Yeah.
than other countries. Like there is a huge mixture of cultures and a lot of cultures that where they do love football. Like football is the sport that they love. And you're meshing us, and obviously, like myself, I take pride in being an American. I'm proud of being born in this country. I know the sacrifices that my mom made to get to this country. But like you just think of, and I know what they're I know what they're mentioning. They're just mentioning regular Americans, like the traditional Americans that grew up in American culture. But it's like, our culture also comes with it. That's why you see the American lineup is probably the most diverse lineup you're ever going to see in any sport. Like, and that's not taking jabs at nobody. Like, I mean, we know the German lineup is going to be nothing but Germans and
Yep.
maybe and a mixture of other guys.
France is the only one that can say that they probably have the most players, maybe not born in France, like in mainland France. It's probably the only team that can somewhat compete with what the diversity that's going to come into an American lineup. Like American lineups not just come from different countries that are American born or born to American service parents. We're talking about within the states, different regions, different dialects, different thoughts, different opinions. I mean, Nacogdoches, Texas versus Seattle, Washington, as far as players go. I mean, that's a real thing. Clinton Dempsey and Landon Donovan were oil and water, but on the field, they work perfectly together. That's just the weird dynamics that come into America, where in the UK, the difference between Birmingham, England and Liverpool, England is an accent. It's not a great deal different as far as your everyday life goes. Most guys are blue collar. Most people have to work up through a low income family in those situations. In the US, somebody from New York could be low income making twice as much as somebody who is in Texas and considered middle class type of thing. So there's just so many different dynamic pieces to an American lineup that just no other country can really compare to. And, when you talk travel, that's a whole other piece of it too.
Yeah, and so I mean, yeah, I do think that there is a bias with American players.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly, and I think it's how you see and I mean, I would even say anybody from North America. There's a huge disrespect for Mexican players as well. Huge disrespect for Canadian players. Anybody from that North American region, not South America, because obviously they spend a bunch of money if your last name ends with a Dino. But I think I think for North America in general, like there's just not that respect for them. I mean, how many times have we seen Keylor Navas get disrespected? The man is clearly a world class keeper, and everyone just, well, he's not this, he's not that. And I was like, no, it's because he's Costa Rican. That's the only reason why you guys don't want to give his credit. Like, not that it literally was a 3-time Champions League winner, three-peat, by the way. And so
deserves his own trophy on some of these showcases. He's just a bust somewhere in most of these teams that he goes to, and it's instead he's an add-in piece to potentially replace an injured guy, despite being one of the best goalkeepers still at the age of 36, 37. Like, yeah, it's crazy the disrespect that happens.
So even though they're talking about American players, I think there's a bias towards the CONCACAF region. I mean, hell, and I'm not trying to defend, not if you're Jamaican and you don't feel this way, that I get it, but it's kind of a slap to the face. And I mean, I think Musa has actually even spoken about it about British, English players that choose to play for Nigeria or their African country of origin from their family. And it's the same thing with Jamaica. Like most of these guys are like, what, 27, 28, realizing, okay, I'm not getting called up by England. Let's just go play in Jamaica. Like,
yeah, let me get an easy international cap to my name.
Yeah. So like,
and I hate using the term easy because that's not how I think it is. I think it's still tough. It's just they look at it as, oh, it's not England, so it's a step down. It's that type of easy. And in reality, it's a different game.
Yeah, man, when you have to play in those humid places like El Salvador and Honduras, it's a different battle, man.
That's physical too, man. We've talked about this before. I think the difference in physicality between North American football versus everywhere else, especially European football, is night and day. People are like, oh, it's physical in England. No, man. No, it's not. You haven't ever taken on a 6'3" linebacker while you're trying to go up for a header. And by the way, the goalkeeper on the other side is a 6'6" center or power forward for their All-American basketball team. Like, you don't have to go up against that in England. Like, we do. These guys are throwing elbows and throwing bodies. Like, it's not easy for an American player.
Yeah, and so I do have a sentiment towards that bias that, and like I said, it's not just America. I think it's just, North America, Caribbean, and the Central America, all in general, that they do it. The only difference is that they take jabs at America because we call it soccer. And
hey, I'll keep calling it soccer proud. I've also said football. See, use them interchangeably.
I feel like we changed it. I go back and forth from football to soccer all the time. I'm like the Ray Allen tweet, but like, I mean, no one's gonna get that one. But yeah, I think Weston McKennie does get constantly thrown into that conversation, and I think that's the difference, right? Because like, you have AC Milan, which clearly is just a healthier environment for Christian Pulisic versus Chelsea, and that's not taking jabs at Chelsea by any means, but
no, it was not a healthy environment.
It was just not a healthy environment for Christian Pulisic, especially after what he did in 2020. Because 2020, Christian Pulisic was just him. But yeah, like, I think Milan was a great change of scenery for him. I know there was concerns. I'm gonna just say this: Landon Donovan is just gonna keep saying someone should go to the MLS until finally someone goes to the MLS. I think that's his take. I mean,
and then Michael Bradley's it up.
Yeah, I mean, Gio Reyna, he's saying that he should come to the MLS. So
that one makes sense, though. Got to get playing time somewhere.
True enough. But we'll see what happens for him, man. I kind of, but yeah, Juventus, 6th place. I do think that they can improve their position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and now the Champions League teams, we got 4th place Fiorentina with 31 points. They did have a big loss, right? They don't have Bove anymore with the team. For obvious reasons, what happened in that Inter Milan match, but yeah, and obviously he's getting a defibrillator installed into his body, or I don't think it's called a defibrillator, but
it's a pacemaker.
And installed to him, and obviously in Serie A they don't allow players to have anything like that on them, which is why Christian Eriksen had to leave Inter Milan. So. But Fiorentina, obviously, they did a massive overhaul of players. Obviously, David De Gea being one of their big names that came into this club this past offseason. Anything that intrigues you for Fiorentina? Do you think they keep this up? Is there any concerns that you have for Fiorentina to stay in the Champions League?
I don't know if I fully believe in them, but they're playing everybody on that team that's coming. Everybody on that squad is playing above their weight class. It feels like they are fighting tooth and nail every single game, which, yes, they're all professionals. They're all going to give it their all. It feels like Fiorentina has that extra edge that a lot of teams that surprise, if you will, into a Champions League spot have. And I think the difference is Fiorentina has a bunch of players that have the quality to back up that edge. They're all kind of like playing with a chip on their shoulder. And I do think Fiorentina can keep that up for the rest of the season, because right now they're being disrespected still. Despite everything, they're still being disrespected, still being doubted. I still think they have the opportunity to stay up there. This is going to be just fake it till you make it. Keep, all the different cliches I can think of that are.
Do you think there's going to be any adjustments that are going to be made from the opposing teams?
I don't know. When it gets to tactics against Fiorentina, it's just a matter of do what you do best if you're the defending team. That's, I think, the big thing. Like, do what you do best. Don't try to go outside of yourself to face Fiorentina. And the top 4 or 5 teams that are in Serie A, maybe not Serie A table, but in Serie A, so the ACs, the Inters, the Napolis, the Atalantas, yes, even the Lazios, Juve, I guess I should say 6. Those teams, if they just stay within themselves against Fiorentina, they have a much better opportunity. It's when teams try to – Fiorentina lulls you into this false sense of security at times, and then they take advantage of it quickly in a hurry, and next thing you know, good luck.
Yeah.
And it's just if you do what you do well, if you know what you do well, I should say, you should succeed against Fiorentina. But Fiorentina, if you make a mistake, good luck.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So, I think Fiorentina is going to be interesting. I think right now Serie A is probably the most competitive league in the entire Power Five right now.
Yeah.
So I think we could see I don't think anybody is safe, honestly, in the Serie A table. Where it is right now could be completely different by the time we get to May, and so I think that is something interesting. I mean, and we might look at the tables by April just to see how that last month's going to look like. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that. But Inter Milan, last year's winner, third place with 34 points, and only a point behind second place Napoli with 35 points. When you went into this season, did you expect to see these three teams in general, like Fiorentina, Inter Milan, and Napoli? I mean, Napoli, Antonio Conte, dude, the guy just understands Serie A better
Yeah.
than anybody else, and he did this and made the very crazy decision of sending Victor Osimhen to Galatasaray on loan and trusting Lukaku.
Lukaku knows the Serie A as well. I I look at these three teams as maybe not a surprise, but I think their demanding nature right now is the surprise. Like they demand wins from their teams, which Inter Milan historically has always demanded wins. Fiorentina for much of the early 2000s demanded wins. Napoli is like a 3-year wonder that takes a break for 5 years, then comes back for 3 solid years and then takes a break. This is an extended period for Napoli that's surprising. But they're still good. I don't want to take it away from them because they are still a good team, but it's just like their nature, these three teams' nature right now of just capitalizing on every possible mistake again in the other teams. And we talked about it a couple times now. In Serie A, you just have to win your games. Like, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. So many teams are drawing. If you just keep winning, you get a 2-point advantage every single time over the team that draws. And so these three teams are just capitalizing every opportunity they get. They like Fiorentina, for example, may not score a ton of goals, but they score the most effective goals out of anybody else in the top 5 right now. And Inter Milan, on the other hand, scores a ton of goals and makes you feel inferior at times. I mean, they just won 6-0. Like that's how good Inter can be. And Napoli on the other end is just kind of in between. They are just precision and skilled at just staying above the team they're playing and staying above the teams around them. And it maybe is a surprise in the standpoint that this is the order of these three teams and they're second, third, fourth. But I think they should have been a top 6 team. All of these should be top 6 teams. Maybe Fiorentina is the one I look at like the outsider, but these three don't necessarily surprise me a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said, it's going to be very open. I think that it's still anybody's game when it comes to Serie A. Things change in this league. Like you mentioned, all you got to do is just win and find wins. And there's a team in the middle of all this that I see can find wins and get back on top. And I think that that's going to be interesting to see how that second half goes. But currently, the front runners for the to win the Serie A is Atalanta in first place with 37 points. This team, mind you, when Juventus was just dominating the league, Atalanta just became the team that was the second team in Serie A, while you know AC Milan and Inter Milan were still trying to figure themselves out, while Napoli would be kind of interesting but kind of not at the same time. Lazio just somewhere. Same thing with Fiorentina; they were just somewhere in the tables. Atalanta became this team that just played with grit, played with very Serie A type ball, and back then it was what was it, Duvan Zapata and Luis Muriel that was leading the charge, and now this version of Atalanta, this is also the team that gave Bayer Leverkusen their only loss last year. We have the all-time image of their coach, shushing Xabi Alonso for what reason I have no idea, but that was funny. Do you think there was a confidence from that team? Also, all behind African Player of the Year, Ademola Lookman. Can we just is there something special with Atalanta, or are we going to see them fall off of this first place position?
I don't know if it's special as much as
This year is
prepared.
just bizarre.
No. I think this team is good. I just think this team is prepared more for Serie A and the ups and downs. Two guys that stand out for me, Mario Pasalic and Juan Cuadrado. Like, two guys, Serie A vets. These guys have been there. They've done it multiple years. They know how to navigate this weirdness. Ederson, you have Rune from the Netherlands. This team is made of guys that just survive in a lot of ways in Serie A, and now they're kind of put together behind one shield, and they're able to go out and play way above what you might expect. Heck, Rui Patricio is their goalkeeper. Like, did that name ring a bell? Anybody? It's surprising anybody? Yeah, he is. This team it feels like from top to bottom, this team is just out here to win and survive. Really, necessarily win is kind of second to just survive in a lot of ways. And this, sometimes in Serie A, you just have to have those seasons where you do that. More wins than losses, or sorry, more losses than draws, but they have way more wins than anybody else up there. And it's like, so they're not really drawing a lot. They're losing 3 out of compared to the 1 draw, but they're winning. And that's at the end of the day, the important thing. Like, if you can just turn these draws into wins, that's what you need to do in Serie A to survive. And like I said, there's players here who have just been, that's their entire career, is just doing what it takes to get a win in Serie A. And you put enough of them under the same shield, you might surprise yourself with some answers here. So, yeah, I mean, surprised, sure, but not necessarily as surprising as it could have been. If this was Fiorentina first, I'm way more shocked than Atalanta. Atalanta, Napoli up here in this season specifically feel right first and second in Serie A. So,
Yeah. All right. Teams to note. I'm just gonna say it. AC Milan in 8th place. I think that they just need more from their players. They need to just get some results in. I think it's great to see everyone have this constructive criticism of Christian Pulisic. Obviously they're saying, Christian Pulisic should be your penalty taker. All those things that came in along with this year, so far this season. But there has to be some structure. There has to be, and obviously new coach, right? For AC Milan, and all those things. But they're not that far away. And there's a lot of results that should have gone their way, but obviously they let it become draws. Kind of how you mentioned with Atalanta, that they turned those draws into wins. And I think maybe the second half of the season for AC Milan, they will probably see that adjustment. Maybe we see Lau be back to being the guy that everyone thought he was going to be, the guy that was like rumored to make all these moves, make the big move to Barca, big move to how many moves he was linked to. But we need to see more from the star players. Like, it shouldn't just be Christian Pulisic's name that we think of when we say AC Milan.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, let's not forget, they still have Teo Hernandez, Alvaro Morata, as guys that are on this team. Yusuf Fofana. Like, these guys still play for Milan. There's no reason they...
I think there's also rumors of who's the center back for AC Milan, the Englishman.
Right. My brain shut off. I'm sorry.
I'm right there with you, man. It should be, damn it,
not Tomori.
Tomori.
Is it Tomori?
Yeah, it is Tomori.
Okay, I didn't know he's English, so that was...
yeah, because he came from Chelsea.
Yes.
But yeah, Tomori. I believe he's rumored to potentially make a move back to the Prem. I don't know what club is I've heard plenty of clubs. Maybe a return to Chelsea. I don't know. But Tomori, because obviously since he moved to AC Milan, very much benefited his career, and I think that's what led to all these other former Chelsea players come to AC Milan, like Loftus-Cheek and Christian Pulisic,
Tammy
Abraham.
My favorite pairing with Christian Pulisic is Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, I mean, I have a soft spot for Tammy Abraham as well. So, better option than fucking Alvaro Morata. No offense to him. It's just you're a journeyman for a reason. I was surprised you were captain of Spain for the Euro. But you do have your moments, and if you were playing against Real Madrid, I'd probably say put you on the field because you're always good for that revenge goal.
I'll
But
say he's great against Spain or Spanish, or great for Spain or against Spanish teams. That's about as good as that gets.
but yeah, we need to see more from AC Milan. We need to see them flip the switch,
Yeah.
and have more killer instinct because I think that's what's hurting them, especially when these draws that should be wins for them.
Yeah. It feels like Rafael Leao is just kind of chilling out there sometimes. And it's like he's not showing the killer instinct he once had. And that makes me nervous for the future of Rafael Leao. And that's frustrating. But no, a team for me, though, I do just want to throw this out there. I know we mentioned Juventus. By the way, undefeated Juventus this season, but 10 draws.
Undefeated in sixth place.
Undefeated in sixth place, 10 draws, 5 or 4 straight. 10 draws. Talk about a team that just needs to get some wins under their belt.
This is giving me flashbacks on Wake Up MLS when I called the Philadelphia Union mid when they were undefeated, and I had so many Philly fans attack me for calling them mid. Like, but we're undefeated. I was like, yeah, but you guys have like a shit ton of draws, and I was like, and I remember when I recorded that episode of Wake Up MLS, and I was like, look, guys, can we just say this that Philadelphia is just mid? And I remember everyone was like, bro, someone's gonna be mad, and I'm glad that I appreciate that Jose and everybody at Wake Up MLS was supportive of me calling them out. As a matter of fact, made a clip, and that's what got even more attention to me. But
good. I mean, that's the thing, though. I think this conversation needs to be had with teams like that and teams like Juventus. Like, you're Juventus, for goodness sake. Yes, there was a time where you were relegated, but it wasn't through performance. It was through paying people incorrectly, specifically referees. And, this Juventus team, like, you have 6 wins and 10 draws. How embarrassing is that you are not doing anything? This feels like a Juventus team that is trying to play in 1994 in Italy and not playing in 2024 or now 2025 soon, where, like, they're just not putting any heart behind their attacks. It feels like if you're drawing with a team through 75 minutes, bring on attackers. Make a forward-thinking move. Bring McKinney on to kind of facilitate some sort of spark. We know he's a spark plug as USA fans. Like, the guy knows how to spark for better and for worse.
And then you have Tim Weah, who's just a dog, and I'm so happy that
these guys.
I'm so happy that he got himself a spot in the starting lineup as well.
Yeah, it just feels like Juventus right now is kind of that duck in the middle of the pond trying to figure out where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want to go to the left side? Do they want to go to the right side? They just don't seem to want to know. And it's, as a manager, as a coach, you just have to look at this team and you're like, you know what? I got to shake something up and get some kind of spark in the lineup. Whatever that is, whatever you have to do, whoever you have to bench, whoever you have to start, whoever you have to bring on in the 35th minute, for goodness sake, I don't care. I need some excitement from this Juventus team. Like, they're known as the old lady for a reason. I didn't think it was going to be because they suck at trying to attack. They just are so boring right now. I feel like I'm being just thrown to sleep by the old lady.
Especially when you're attacking options, right? You have Dusan Vlahovic, which I haven't heard anything about him, so clearly not well. Yeah, it's been interesting, what's been going on with Juventus. And I mean, the fact that you mentioned they're undefeated, and I haven't been paying attention enough to care. It just tells me everything.
I've been sitting on that one for most of the show. It's just like, it's crazy.
And also, you love their kits too, by the way.
Yes. I absolutely adore their kits.
Yeah, so
I want to see these kits winning more.
Yeah, so I agree with that one, man. But oh my god, yeah, I didn't even bother to look at the record. I just saw their point total. I was like, they're mid-table. I mean, they can't be doing that great.
Yeah, 10. 6 wins, 10 draws, 0 losses.
Oh my god, that's. I mean, well, no, you got to win games in the Serie A.
This is the crazy part. There was a 4-game stretch where it was 0-0, 0-0, 1-1, 2-2.
That just gives me more props to Atalanta, by the way, because they win for it. They go. That's the difference between them versus a Juventus versus an AC Milan. They're willing to take the risk, whatever that risk is, and it's getting them the results. Not and I mean it's not like they're doing like significant. It's not like blowing the competition away because I mean Napoli is like 2 points away, and Inter Milan is literally a win away from
Yeah.
from evening out with them. So I mean it's not that they're doing everything like perfect, but it's all about those little risks that you're willing to take, and that's why Atalanta's in first place while Juventus is in 28th place with 6 wins and 10 draws.
And their last game was a 2-2 draw to Venezia, who is, as we said, sitting on 10 points, dead last in the league.
Like that's a win for them.
Yeah, you just gave Venezia a point. Congratulations. You just excited Venezia, and now they're going to go on to probably get out of the relegation zone because they drew with Juventus going into the break.
Yeah, man. But that is Liga, Bundesliga, and Serie A. The tables. I can't wait for the second half of the season to see how all this transpires. Do we see new champions? Do we see different champions? Do we see a champion that we've never seen before? Those are questions that I can't wait to find out in May. But Kelcey, it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. I'm sure we'll have you plenty more times on Insert MSC, especially in 2025. But here's your chance, man. I mean, what's going on with Hogh Low Sports, and what are some big things that we should be expecting for next year?
Yeah, so Hogh Low Sports, you guys can check us out, as always, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time over on Hogh Low Sports on their Twitter, Twitch, YouTube page, or the BellyUpSports YouTube page. We'll be live there, or you can catch us the next day on any audio platform. Obviously, we're getting into the American football, college football playoff season, so now we're going to have a lot of conversation around that. We're in the stretch run for the NFL, getting down to the end of the regular season. Got some fantasy football conversations, some betting, which has gone better now that it's no longer November. November was a struggle, but we got some more betting content coming out. And then next year, just some of the other things going on. We got tons to look forward to with the NFL draft. We plan on putting out a bunch of stuff for the draft, a bunch of stuff getting ready for the MLB season. So yeah, while I talk about this every time, I don't get to talk much soccer over there. So I am happy to come on anytime you need me. That's for sure. Whether it be now, next week, the week after, I'm always here.
I always appreciate that, Kelcey. All right, we're gonna go ahead and. Well, I still haven't figured out how the structure of this podcast goes. So you might hear an ad, you might just make us hear the fight and win chant, and then we'll segue on to Jose. But next is Jose Tellez and me talking about La Liga and the Premier League. So get ready for that. All right, guys. You heard me and Kelcey talk about Liga and Bundesliga and Serie A, and I'll be honest, some people don't really give a shit about them. So we're going to talk about the two leagues that actually everyone gives a shit about, and that is, of course, La Liga and the Premier League. And, of course, we got the mastermind behind GolzTV, Jose Tellez, here to talk about it. Obviously, he's a Barca fan, so I'm not going to talk about Barca right now. But you're also a Prem. You're a huge Prem fan. As a matter of fact, GolzTV, you have your own Premier League show. So fitting that we bring you into specifically you. I don't think we need Hofford. I think we're fine. He would
have been a good one for this week, to be honest, bro. For a number of reasons, both on the Prem side and La Liga. Not Hector. I appreciate bringing me back on, man. I know both leagues well, tracking them both really well for a couple different shows. So yeah, man, I'm excited to dive in.
Exactly, man. So we'll kick this off in La Liga because we essentially are having this in ascending order, if you will, starting with Ligue 1 all the way down to the Premier League. Because as much as I would love to say La Liga is the best league in the world, I think that there's a lot of people that would very much disagree with that take, and that's unfortunate. But here we are. Hey, you know what? It's the end of the year episode. Yeah. And once again, I apologize, but Edward lost the singing bet, so you guys are gonna just have to suck it up and listen to Edward sing. And I don't know what else. The bet's the bet. He paid the bet. Just be glad this is the last time we're doing this. Just because I'm afraid of copyright. So there we are. But we'll kick things off with La Liga. We'll start out with the teams that are in the relegation zone. We have in 20th place Valencia. Wow, dude. I've seen them kind of trending down every single year. It's kind of weird to see this team in this position just for the fact that like I feel like a good chunk of my life watching La Liga, Valencia has always been there. Maybe contesting, or even when like the early years of FIFA, when you did Be a Pro, where you just you magically pop up on certain clubs, and Valencia for some reason was always a club that I ended up in, and yeah, it's just weird to see this team at the bottom. It's like I guess to explain to people that don't watch La Liga, it's like seeing trying to think of a Prem team that probably would be shocking to see. Like I guess like to see Tottenham, even though I would be all for seeing Tottenham in the relegation zone. Because
It would be crazy. They're one of the big six for sure. Yeah.
yeah, so it would be just like that's how I view it, and so that's insane for Valencia. 10 points in this first half of the season. That's almost like that's pretty impressive. I mean, it's not the worst one. It's not the worst one because what was it? Bochum only has three in over there in the Bundesliga, so
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, bro. The reason Valencia being this low hurts, if I'm being honest, and even just look at the relegation battle in general, man. Just look at it, right? I like to think Valencia has better young players than the likes of Getafe, who I think is some of the bro. I know terrorist ball is a term very, very heavily thrown around the internet. I totally get that. A lot of people don't know what it means either, which is they're describing certain clubs playing terrorist ball because they're not scoring, not that they're not playing attacking football. Nonetheless, Getafe legitimately is terrorist football. Like they're there to play physical, beat the shit out of you, not really play the game if they don't have to, hit you on a lucky counter if they can, but they're basically setting up to not get scored on if possible. So to see that team, bro, what is it? 2 whole games clear of Valencia. This is where we are in 2024. Like Hugo Duro to me is a good young striker. Blows my mind that right now he is the starting striker for 20th place Valencia, who, like you said before, bro, top 6 consistently, top 4 a good chunk of the early 2000s. Man,
also, all the names that came out of that club as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
produce so much talent, bro. I mean, they still produce talent to this day. It's not as prevalent as it used to be, but I mean, Ferran Torres, who plays for Barcelona, came out of Valencia. It's just it's crazy that that they've fallen this far. I'm still trying to keep some hope alive, bro. But in all honesty, they've been bad. And for anyone who doesn't watch La Liga, I mean, they've been really bad. I will throw a little bit of shot, I guess, against L3. L3 tied 2-2 to the backup Valencia squad. Let you know how down bad Mexico is right now. But yeah, bro, this is Valencia's bad, and to be honest, like Valladolid, Espanyol, there really isn't like a good team in there that you think has a good chance to avoid relegation.
Yeah, and I mean Espanyol just got promoted this year, and they look like they're very much going back down. But which I mean, there's teams that do that. Espanyol, I'm sure as a Barca fan, and Edward says it all the time too. Espanyol is a very annoying team to Barcelona. So if they're not in the league, I mean, I'm sure you're.
Yeah, go back to where you belong, as far as I care. I mean, I'm right there with you guys. Like it's Real Madrid, and then right below that is Espanyol. Like I don't know.
Yeah, at least your random annoying local club is might be gone because I still got stupid Getafe. And speaking of that terrorist ball team, I hate that team.
Bro, I can't stand the manager. He plays almost innocent, like he's being victimized. I don't know, man. Like when people because journalists bring it up a lot. No one's shy down in Spain, and so it's just again the whole persona of that team and that club. I'm not about it, but that's what makes me get up for those games. Like I was like, all right, cool. I have a reason to hate, like really, really hate Getafe today when Barcelona plays against them.
Yeah, exactly. And then talking about teams that are qualifying for European competition, in 6th place we got Villarreal with 26 points right now. I think Villarreal, I'm kind of where you expect them to be. I feel like they should be higher at times when I watch them play. And I mean, it's kind of crazy. You think about it, like not that long ago, this team won the Europa League against Manchester United, and I think it probably also goes back to the fact that they lost. They did lose their top manager that went back to the Premier League over, doing his thing with Aston Villa. The Europa League guru, that guy. I don't want to say his name because I hate him, but
Fair enough.
I have my vendetta. But Villarreal, I think, kind of. I'm just gonna say this. I don't be surprised if Villarreal moves up. I think that they're finding their stride. They got players on the team that I'm actually very surprised that haven't left Villarreal. Like I'm surprised, like Jeremy Pino is still on the team. Like I thought that
Hmm.
that guy would be either in Barcelona or Real Madrid or Atletico at some point, and he's still loyal to Villarreal, or the offers just haven't been enticing. Um, but then in Europa League, Mallorca, I think, did I expect Mallorca to be in any European competition, at least competing for any shot at a European competition this year? No. I mean, I think Mallorca, what they did in the transfer window, I think was just doing what they needed to stay afloat in La Liga, and fortunately, I guess that got them exceeding their expectations right now. Which, I mean, if you're Steve Nash and Stuart Holden, you must be super happy about that. But the European competition, guys, like, I mean, how do you feel about Mallorca and Villarreal? Do you see any of them slipping? Because to me, that's my teams to note is that fifth and sixth, I think, could be changing frequently throughout the second half of the season.
Yeah. I mean, so with Villarreal, I'll touch on them first before Mallorca. Villarreal is interesting because at the start of the season, for anybody who's watching La Liga, you thought this team's got to be top four. And the reason I say that's because one, they're probably the most exciting team in La Liga, like to an extent, even as hot as Barcelona started, like Villarreal was just so up and down, right? They would get transitioned on, but then they almost with every single counter attack they were scoring. Um, but now it's like some of the inconsistencies have popped up. Bro, today, I can't remember who they actually played today. I'm pretty sure who was it? Was it Betis? Yeah, it was Betis at home. Betis at home and playing with a man advantage for over 50, 60 minutes, somewhere around there. Or a half, I think. But either way, um, having that kind of advantage at La Ceramica, with the Yellow Submarine behind you, I just feel like a team that potent or has been that potent to an extent offensively should be able to get the job done, and they couldn't, man. It was kind of crazy. And you get these games from Villarreal. They're just somewhat of a feast or famine team. Like you either get today losing at home with the man advantage to Real Betis, who in their own right are a pretty decent team, or you get Nico Pepe with a crazy brace, both goals pretty damn legit, and the team's firing on all cylinders. You mentioned guys like Jeremy Pino. I think Pino's a really good player, but he had that injury, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think honestly, bro, I don't know. He just doesn't play as confidently when I watch him play. Like he does still try to make the runs with the ball inside, carry, cause a little bit of havoc, but like it's the final cutting pass that he doesn't have back yet. And then just beyond that too, I mean, his pace, I don't think, based on what I remember about him, was what it used to be. And that's all to be expected with a major injury. So he might need a little more time. But I think that's why there's probably not like a serious offer for Pino. But they have Baena. Baena's another one. I think he leads La Liga in assists, or he's like top three, some shit like that. So they got some good young players over there, backed by some tried and true veterans like Parejo. So it's a good side. They're gonna be consistent. They'll be fighting for top six. Right now, I think this is pretty good for them. If they slip to seventh or eighth, that would surprise me a little bit, but I think sixth is pretty spot on. Mallorca, that's the one that surprised a lot of people. I could see them finishing mid-table, like ninth or 10th. I
Oh,
think
so
there's
you
gonna be a
feel they're
drop
gonna
off at
fall
some
off?
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. They're not a bad team. The effort's always there, and they have some playmakers like Mojica and Maffeo. Like I really like their wingbacks. I think they're solid. They cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams. To me, they're more of like a cup team. I see like a good Copa run, or and of course all along the way causing trouble for the big three, the big four. But like outside of that, mid-table to me, 8th through 10th, probably appropriate for Mallorca.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you mentioned it as well. That's why I feel like we're gonna see a lot of shifting in that fifth and sixth spot. At least in my opinion, I think I'm not to say that the teams in the top four are necessarily safe. I think maybe fourth place is gonna be an interesting discussion. But I think the way that team that's in fourth place, which will go right into the Champions League teams, fourth place Athletic Club Bilbao, I think have been fairly sturdy. It's like one of those where you have your window is slowly closing, right? Because the whole rumors with Nico Williams of him finishing out the year and then more than likely going to Barcelona. Those connecting the big three that Spain had in this past summer. So I feel like at this point, Athletic Club Bilbao is kind of going all in. Just kind of putting all their money on the table and just seeing what happens here. Because I think, and if there was a time to go all in, this team, the team that literally won the Copa del Rey last season, why not go for it? And I think that's going to be an interesting. I think a Champions League spot for Athletic Club Bilbao. I think they'll be able to maintain it. I mean, there's also that concern of them. Maybe they got too hot too early, which I'm sure Jose, you have a pretty good idea of that feeling as well. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, Athletic Club Bilbao. I think I like a lot of the things that they're doing, and I think it's also good. And I'm kind of intrigued what they do in January. Like, what do they do to add to it? Because I obviously Athletic Club Bilbao, they don't normally buy players, but I mean, I think that there's some players available that maybe they bring in to just add some more depth into what they're doing right now.
Yeah, Bilbao's an interesting team, right? Because I mean, bro, the fact, I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, right? Like the fact that they're all from the Basque Country is amazing. You have to respect Bilbao for that, for fielding a very competitive team with just Basque region players in Spain. With that said, this version, it is probably the most competitive Bilbao we've seen in quite some time. I thought that last season, and then this season, I feel like players like Sanset are stepping up in a way that I kind of knew his game would be elevated. He's 24, 25 years old now. So as that center attacking mid 10 who can also kind of shadow the striker and get his own bunch of goals throughout any given season, I thought he would have like a decent season this year for sure. But I feel like he stepped up to kind of cover some of the gap left a little bit by Nico Williams. You got to remember, man, I think being that closely connected to a fan base and a club as big as Barcelona, like what that might do to a young kid, 21, 22 years old mentally, who's still trying to figure out where his long-term future lies. I think he's known for a while now. Bilbao's probably not it, but he wants to help them as long as he can. And I think that's probably the reason for the slow start, but I think he's been growing into the season. And bro, Iñaki, his brother, is still banging him in. I swear this guy turns into prime R9 every fucking time he plays like Real Madrid or Barcelona or somebody. Because outside of that, I think he'd be like somewhat inconsistent as a striker. But they got the offensive pieces, man. And if Nico were to leave, I still think Bilbao could be good next season. I think they got Berenguer, who I actually rate as a winger. I think he's a solid winger who can both assist and score. And I think outside of that, I mean, even like the wing back play that they're using now, DeMarcos is a right back. I like what he's doing on that right hand side too. Like Bilbao is still an interesting side. That tie today against Alaves, probably like almost trumps everything I said. But at the end of the day, I mean, Barca lost today too to Leganes, so like it's probably just a weird day. But Bilbao to me is like they have top four potential for sure this season, and next season I would still say top four, top six. I mean, I don't think they'll go away anytime soon, even with the loss of it, Nico Williams.
No, I agree. I think Bilbao has found like their system now, and I mean they've been using the system. It's just that now they have like I guess their generation of players are all coming up at this good moment, which that's why I'm very intrigued of what they do in January because I mean yeah, it's great to bring homegrown talent and all those things are great and all that, but at some point you gotta bring some sort of savvy veteran to come in and really take this team up a notch. And I mean, and the thing is, as you're saying, man, like Sunset coming in, stepping up into the role, like especially after Iker Munai, leaves the club after last season, and certain guys are stepping up in certain moments. You mentioned obviously Inaki Williams, who it may be not the most consistent player, but does know how to come up for the team. So I think that that's also an important part. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what if Athletic Club Bilbao does anything in the January transfer window. Just because I feel like I especially how right now the top three is looking like, where you're like we can easily slip in. And I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna win La Liga by any means, but I'm just saying like, hey, while these three are killing each other, we could probably like slip right in, and who knows, like maybe we can rewrite history here. And so I think that's an interesting idea. So I think January is gonna be telling of what Athletic Club Bilbao views this year, especially when you know for a fact Nico's not coming back.
Yeah, it's true, bro. And look, I would say not even just with incoming transfers. I would say with outgoing ones. Like it really will tell you, how they feel this season is going or what the potential is for it. Because if for some crazy, and I'm saying it would have to be insane for Nico to leave in January. But if someone threw a bag, I honestly, I think Bilbao is a club that is reasonable and does have a price tag. Like if it's met, it's met. So there's always that potential. If they sell Nico, again, that tells you everything you need to know about maybe their ambitions for the season. But right now, as things stand with the squad that they have, to me, that fourth place in the top four is theirs to lose. I think if they drop another game somewhere, right? I mean, I drop all 3 points, like lose. Then it gets really interesting for guys like Villarreal, who I think are right, or just waiting for Bilbao to kind of fuck up somewhere. From there, I would almost back either Sociedad or Betis over who's remaining, just because they're the more experienced La Liga sides. Like I expect Betis to continue to grow into the season. Sociedad started terribly, and they should also grow into the season.
Yeah, for sure. And then third place, Real Madrid, didn't capitalize on any of this poor form that Barcelona has been in, and the rut that Barcelona has been in. I mean, 37, a point away from Barcelona. Luckily, my boy, my boy Jeff Lunau and CD Legana did me a solid here, but but yeah, no, Real Madrid. It's funny is how very dysfunctional Real Madrid is right now, and yet they're still able to be just a point away. And it's a like you to be like this dysfunctional and still manage to be top three is weirdly enough impressive. Like this is anchor man. Like I'm not even mad. I'm just impressed at this point. Like I mean, the fact that there's and also with all the injuries that Real Madrid's got hit with this year, Danny Carvajal essentially out for the year. Rodrigo just came back. He did the John Cena "You Can't See Me." That was kind of cool. I mean, would have been cooler if it was a win, but I mean, like,
Good goal, good goal.
good goal by my adopted son. Valverde has stepped up tremendously. The dude is just he just says, "Hey, I need you to play this," and he says yes. That's all he does, man. That guy's a Uruguayan army knife. So like that's good to see from my other adopted son. And Vinny's healthy, so that makes me feel confident. Mbappe got hurt. I think he's gonna be out for a while, but I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, like with all the and then like now Jude has been on quite the run. I think at the same time like these guys are some of the top players in the world. Carlo Ancelotti is still one of the top managers in the world. Like it's one of those things like even though amongst all this chaos, like you still look at it and you're like they'll figure something out. I think that's what I hear from everyone. And I know you guys heard me like after, El Clasico, and I still stand by it. Because when it comes down to it, yeah, the regular La Liga games, which I can't even say the regular La Liga games because sometimes Real Madrid looks like shit against those games too. But it's like when it comes down to it, in those games that truly matter, that's where you're like, you can't be a dysfunctional team. You have to be able to look confident. I mean, I think the Liverpool loss was very telling of where Real Madrid is as a team. You can't just rest on, oh, this guy will do something at some point, against a team like Liverpool, against, AC Milan, against those teams, like you can't, against a Barcelona, you can't rest on the laurels of your key players just coming up for a moment. Like those games, you got to be on point just every single minute. Every minute is important. And so, and unfortunately, when it came down to going up against the other two teams in the big three of La Liga, you didn't get a positive result. You got a draw against Atletico Madrid, and you lost to Barcelona quite handsomely. And so, that's where the dysfunction isn't great. This is where the injuries aren't great, and I think third place is oddly impressive for everything that's been going on with Real Madrid this season.
Yeah. I think it shows you too the fact that like most fans don't understand about La Liga, right? They just see the big names. Is that like all these three teams in a really weird way, the big three, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, are all dealing with their own like growing pains in a weird way. Real Madrid being the most dominant X Factor team, defending European champion, defending Spanish champion coming into the season, they added arguably the most sought after piece in recent history, and it somehow made them worse. But like at the same time, that floor isn't very far, right, from like where it was last season, just because on paper the skill is still there. I think the issue with Real Madrid is they're kind of suffering somewhat of a similar, I won't call it a crisis, but like situation and hurdle to overcome here. And Ancelotti is anyway, as Pep is kind of dealing with City. Now, Manchester City's issues are significantly deeper and they have a lot of soul searching to do. But I think with Real Madrid, it's, I don't know, sometimes Ancelotti gets in his own way. You mentioned Jude before, right? Like now kind of on this recent run of form, why did that happen? Right? Because he's back in his normal position, right? Whether Vinny or Mbappe are out, one of those two are out, Jude gets to do what he wants to do on the field. And when that happens, good things happen for Real Madrid. It's something I've said from the start of the season. To me, even with Mbappe coming in, the people were saying, "Oh, is this Vinny's team or Mbappe's team?" I don't think it was either. I think it should be Jude's team if the team wants to win. It's the player Ancelotti should be catering to, right? The perfect example was the Bilbao game at the San Mamés when Real Madrid lost. That penalty that got missed, why did Mbappe take it and not Jude when Jude had made the one against Getafe the week before? Right? It's like in these giant club settings, there are designated takers and you don't switch from that. Like not to save somebody's ego, not to save somebody's form. You don't switch. You play for the win. There's a reason that person's the taker. Right? Like in the Ronaldo days, no one was ever telling Ronaldo, "Hey, bro, I need a goal. You mind if I get a goal real quick?" Ronaldo doesn't give a shit. He's the designated taker. Benzema, same thing, right? Like there's a reason. And if Vinny's injured, there's a second guy. When the second guy's out, there's a third guy. Like there just has to be a process. And I feel like there's not because of the chaos going on. And the player being catered to is Mbappe, not Jude, which to me, I think is a problem considering how impactful Jude is on the field. And so I don't know, man. Madrid can fix a lot of what it does right now, just running the game through him. But like you said, it's not like you guys are in a crazy bad position. It just shows you the growing pains that Atletico Madrid and Barcelona are dealing with, which we'll talk about. But Real Madrid, I mean, it's just a matter of the second half of the season winning the big games. Win them. You have to beat your crosstown rival, and you have to win El Clasico if you want to retain La Liga. And in maybe it doesn't happen because of injuries or anything else, but that's just the formula that I think Madrid should be using. But who knows, bro? Ancelotti, so many fans have an adoration for him. Many won't hold him accountable. The others want him out already. So like it's very mixed, but I don't know. I think
it's also very Real Madrid.
It's very big club, bro. Like it's a very divisive topic. So I get how great Ancelotti is, but I just think he's a great manager. He's just over massaging the wrong personality. I think you need to be like catering everything you do to Jude.
Yeah, that I agree. But the second place team is Atletico Madrid with 38 points. The only team with a positive result from this past weekend. And which is crazy because this team took a big, they got rid of João Felix. I think that was the right move for them. They didn't need him. I don't think it fit to what Diego Simeone liked to do in his system. Which honestly, I honestly have no idea what the system is. I think it's just give it to Griezmann, and let him figure it out. let him decide what the attack is. But Julian Alvarez, I thought was an interesting addition to the team, and then I started looking. I was like, dang, there's so many Argentinians on this team now.
There really are.
Yeah, but I think still they play with that intensity that you expect from a Diego Simeone side, but I think that there's still a lot to play for. I mean, we also heard the rumors of Antoine Griezmann leaving Atletico Madrid. to go to LAFC, and thank God that didn't happen. But yeah, I think Atletico Madrid has been an interesting story to follow this year, just because of everyone wanting to see how they respond to moving on from João Felix, because he's not coming back,
Yeah.
and I think that they're responding to it pretty fairly well. But there's also another concern when it comes to Atletico Madrid, and that is how they do in the second half of the season. Are they going to be the ones that are competing for that number one spot, or are they just going to go back to their third place spot that they always end up in?
I don't know, man. I think with Atletico Madrid, it's they're the interesting one, right? Like okay, so first and foremost, everyone's pointing to Atletico Madrid's record, their form at the moment. They're the most informed team in La Liga, which I will not disagree with at all. I think what I'm disagreeing with is the mass opinion that they are La Liga's best team because of this run. When I want to point to the fact that, like, look, it's not like there are no halfway decent teams that could upset them in this schedule that they've played, but it's not the strongest schedule, right? In that time, 10 games in a row now, they've played UE Vic, which I think is like a fourth division Spanish side. Like, I've honestly never heard of the team. In the Copa, they play Las Palmas, PSG, Mallorca, Alaves, Sparta Prague in Champions League, Valladolid, Casereno, which is again another lower league side in the Copa, Sevilla, Slovan Bratislava, and Getafe. And I'm willing to bet majority of those sides that I mentioned are either divisions below the Primera or they're in beneath the middle of the table. The majority of them. Very few of them are above that 10th place spot. So again, it's PSG, you can argue, is probably the best team they've played maybe in that run. And that game was disgusting. Honestly, it wasn't even that great of a game of football. 2-1, but they stole it at the very end, right? So I just
Simeone ball.
Simeone ball, yeah, through and through. Now, again, I think right now they're playing at a slightly better level. I think Sorloth is slowly kind of finding himself. He scored today against Getafe, which is great for them. Julian Alvarez got a lot of shtick in his first few games for Atletico Madrid because he wasn't like creating the goals and assists, but he's getting there now. He's getting numbers on the board. And yeah, man, I mean, on paper, they do have some ballers, bro. Griezmann does control everything. Don't get me wrong. But they leave a lot of games late, and so I wonder also how long that's going to last. It's great right now, right? It's almost good up until it stops working, and then things kind of just fall off. So the big game everyone has to remember that's coming up to really close off the calendar year against Barcelona, that's the one. That's the one where we get to really, really see. Because keep in mind, their record against Barcelona is terrible. Terrible. Like Simeone specifically is a terrible record. He doesn't beat Barcelona very often, if at all. So it's just one of those things where if it's the same old, then whether they're in form or not, I like there are very few seasons where I'm worried about Atletico Madrid. So we'll find out what happens. But right now, they are the most informed team in La Liga.
Yep, and then finishing it off with the team that is right now the front runner with 38 points. They take a loss today against Leganes, and that is of course Barcelona, which I mean everyone going into this offseason where you had Xavi essentially saying that he was going to step down at the end of the year to then being begged to stay on the club, accepting to stay on the club, then decides to go in a press conference and says something that no coach should ever be saying to a press conference. If there was a class on how to be a coach in Media 101, the first thing you should probably say is never say that we're probably not going to beat Real Madrid. Even as someone that does support Real Madrid, when he said that, I was just like, I mean, at least
Stupid. Yeah.
Like if Carlo Ancelotti, bro, I would say Ancelotti out if he said, "Yeah, we're probably not gonna beat Barcelona."
You can leave it mysterious. You can leave it a number of different ways, but you definitely will just flat out say we're gonna try, but it's probably not gonna happen.
Just say we're gonna compete. There's no one. Everyone knows what you're thinking, but we're like, I mean, he's not. I mean, you're hoping that everyone competes, but. And then obviously the alarming debt that Barcelona has, which don't know where they are, at least at that point. I think they're about to. I don't know if they signed it or not, but I know with Nike they're supposed to have like the biggest contract in apparel sponsorship history, from what it sounds like.
Yeah, it is.
Probably still not enough to take care of all the debt, but still, And then you bring in Hansi Flick, which I ain't gonna lie, I clowned the thought of Hansi Flick at Barcelona. Everyone has said something about Hansi Flick being
Hmm.
the manager of Barcelona, and I think the doubt was just because of the fact that his resume, the best came from being at Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
I think that's what it came down to. It. So at least my concern was, where is he in the youth development side of it? Because, and this is just coming off from a Real Madrid fan. Obviously, you're the Barca fan. You kind of have the more idea of like the importance of La Masia, but I know that's Barcelona's bread and butter, is always giving me a heart attack of realizing, oh shit, they found another 16-year-old, kind of thing. And so that
Yeah.
was where I was like, I don't know, because at this point, with the financial situation that Barcelona's at, that's kind of where they have to go get their players. And I didn't believe Hansi Flick could do it. And then Hansi Flick is rocking almost a lineup with academy players, and you're just like, all right, I guess track and field practice, it has its benefits, because even with the injuries that Barcelona's had, because Dani Olmo healthy, hasn't been healthy very fairly well, um, and even when he does play, they look great. Rafinha looks not like Rafinha, if that makes sense to anybody when I say that sentence. Um, Lamine Yamal, I mean. I can't. I hate glazing this kid, but I mean the kid's fucking good, and Robert Lewandowski looks like the guy that was supposed to win the 2020 Ballon d'Or. So it's just,
It's crazy, man. Yeah,
but
it's insane, bro. Yeah, look, here's the thing about Barcelona, right? And look, I think the hate on Hansi Flick, first off, on the hire was not out of this world. I didn't have the best things to say about Hansi Flick either. I was skeptical, right? And not so much because of just the Bayern Munich stint. Because that was fantastic. And then equally, he's brought back down to earth with Germany. But I think after he got hired, I asked myself, like, okay, well, so what was the difference? And it really was the type of players he had access to. That's basically it. I think with Hansi, it's the same reason it worked so well at Bayern. He had the right skill set amongst his roster to like make the high octane system work. Because it is so much cardio. Like the amount of pressing Barcelona does, the high line they keep, just the consistent obsession with winning the ball back as high up the pitch as possible is also what makes them run ragged. You kind of worry as a Barcelona fan how long some of these players last with the amount of minutes they get. And that's the story right now of this team, I think, is the loss against Leganes today. We've seen it a couple different times already. Whether it was Osasuna or Betis away when we're up 2-0, it's just these random games where as much as Barcelona gets up for the big ones, and keep in mind, they just came off of going to the Signal Iduna Park in front of the Dortmund fans and winning 3-2 in the Champions League, to come back and get shut out by Leganes at home, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. And it's kind of the point of the season where I'm kind of glad that the end of the season is kind of right around the corner and the players get somewhat of a break. Because like you said before, right? Injuries, not just to Dani Olmo, but I mean, Frankie de Jong has barely been available. And when he has, he's still been kind of like not up to game speed yet. So he's still just getting there. But in the back line, Araujo, who was our captain and one of our best defenders all last season. Andreas Christensen, most people forgot he exists. He might move in January too. Keep in mind, I think we have a lot of good defenders. And like you said before, there's still financial room to make up, even with the Nike deal, which is going to be a massive deal. But yeah, man, I mean, with this team, because they're so young, we've seen their ceiling and we've seen their floor, right? Like we're gonna have the highs with the lows, at least this season, right? While this team is still young, they still not necessarily play down to their competition, but they sometimes get naive with decision making. They turn the ball over a little too frequently. Sometimes they're a little bit lazy about the high line and open ourselves up completely in the back. It's just it happens with younger talent, right? Not that the skill isn't there, but the experience isn't when you compare it to the other two of the big three. So I think that for that reason, the title race is going to stay close, but that's why those big games are massive. Like Barcelona will be up for those games. They may sleep on Leganes at home, but they'll be up for El Clasico and they'll be up for Atletico Madrid. So, that's why those big games are going to be massive for just how the title race kind of pulls towards the end of the season. And I think the second El Clasico is in April, I believe, or early May. So it's like it's right there. I mean, it tips the whole race. But the big one coming up with Atletico Madrid is massive now because for those who haven't heard, Lamine Yamal is probably out. So he got injured against Leganes. He was already dealing with an ankle injury. He'd missed like 2 or 3 games earlier in the season. But I think he re-injured it, and now he's probably like sprained ankle. Like we probably won't see him till the second half of the season resumes, just to be safe. So the only big game left on the schedule is Atleti. And so we got to think about that game without him. But honestly, bro, if he was even 50-50, I don't know if I'd start him against Atleti. Just a very physical team. Shit could get really bad with like overextending himself and really injuring it, right? So yeah, we'll just have to rely on our experience for that one. And I think we can. Like we beat Atleti last season, season before without Lamine Yamal. I'm not saying they're an easy team by any stretch. It'll be a close physical game, but I think we can still beat them.
Oh yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think the other issue with Simeone is they could be overly aggressive, and that's when they get exposed. And I think Hansi Flick's tactics for that is going to benefit in some sense. But you mentioned Barcelona, kind of maybe the experience isn't all there. In kind of paraphrasing what you're saying, but the experience isn't all there. There was a video that leaked out. I'm not. I'm taking it with. I'm taking it with like fairly little. I don't think that Barcelona are assholes by any means, but I believe there was like a video of like the ball boy trying to collect all the balls for the match, and Rafinha was being a dick to him. He just wanted to get like 2 more kicks in or something like that, and then Chesney was playing keep away with the ball boy. And some random guy on TikTok was going on a rant that this team isn't capable. Like that mentality is not gonna cost them. Is gonna cost them La Liga, which I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I
But
don't get the translation, but I mean, look, I mean, if they're kind of dicks, I mean, it is what it is. If that's true, I haven't seen
which
that.
also is Rafinha, so I mean,
They could know each other. They could just be fucking with each other. It could be their relationship, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I have plenty of boys where we're just assholes to each other, man. It's just how it is. I get it's a kid, but at the same time, right? We don't know their relationship. So saying that translates to not having a winning La Liga attitude, for your information, they've already won La Liga. Thank you very much, Rafinha included. But with that said, I mean, the experienced guys on this team are playing out of their minds. Lewandowski, Rafinha, Pedri, these guys are balling. Koundé was balling to start the season. I think he's had a rough month in like second week of November to where we are now, like rough month and a half, where it's just been a tough stretch of games for him. But he's also had so many minutes last season before, now. Like he gets no break because Barcelona doesn't really have like another option at right back. So I get it with him. Inigo, kind of the same thing. The whole back line, bro, they played so much. Balde is the only one who's gotten like some rest because he's coming off of a major injury. That's the only reason. And they're being careful with him. But Kubarsi, I finally saw him on the bench today.
I would have been intrigued of if Kurobasi was available. Because I feel like obviously with Araujo, you can move. You have like the luxury of Araujo being able to play right back.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but you have that luxury when you have Kurobasi available. Also, these young center backs, that's just the fact that you got a fucking Puyol like that. It just pisses me off. But
I think Kubarsi and Araujo are both like that, to be honest. I think Araujo's a warrior. I hope he stays with Barcelona, but in all honesty, like it's a weird thing to say. It wouldn't surprise me if in a couple years' time or a few years' time, if he was the one to leave first. I just I don't know. I think with the whole Bayern Munich saga, because it already kind of happened, they inquired about him, and I think he entertained it. I think he likes the idea potentially, like if the project isn't, I think he's worried about, the financial aspects of Barcelona, of course, seeing what's happening to teammates like Frankie de Jong and his contract situation unfold, the whole Ousmane Dembele saga and how crazy that was for fans and for him in the locker room. And then you think about his own career. I think he just wants to keep options open in case things don't work out for whatever reason, or if Hansi Flick moves on or whatever. And in that event, I think of all the defenders in the back line, he might be the one to go. But outside of that, man, a lot of good young talent. I hope he can keep it going. But right now, I just want to get some rest, man, because the cracks are now showing with as physical as you have to play in a Hansi Flick system.
all right, and before we move on from La Liga, is there any storylines or like teams that you would say keep an eye out going into the second half of the season?
Um, I think the team that's when I watch them play, I love how much heart they have. They have some absolute ballers too. Don't get me wrong. I think Rayo Vallecano is going to be very interesting. They just drew Real Madrid, right? At the Vallecas, and at that stadium, man. I mean, the fan base is insane. It feels like a fortress. Like you could hear it through your fucking TV. Like it feels like a fortress. I really like watching guys like Isi Palazon play. And for those who don't follow him, like he was the guy who scored the equalizer at the end, the 3-3, the bald guy. Dude, to me is an absolute baller. I love the way he plays. I think just players like that with some of these La Liga teams, guys, if you're not watching La Liga, tune in, bro. Go watch that shit. It is so much more technical than the Premier League. It really is. And teams like Rayo, teams like Celta Vigo, they show it, man. They show it. So I would say those two teams, Rayo, Celta Vigo, they're 12th and 13th right now. Just keep an eye on them, man. Like they'll, if they don't move a lot in the table, they'll at least upset some big teams, and they already have. Celta with Barcelona and Rayo with Real Madrid.
You know, you mentioned that like 12 play, 13, 12 plays, because it's like, as far as points goes, like all fairly close to each other from fifth and sixth. So the thing that I actually, and that includes, Celta Vigo and Rayo Vallecano, but it is that race for fifth or sixth. I think that is going to be, you mentioned Athletic Club Bilbao, like how fourth place is their spot to lose, and I agree with that. And maybe I'll throw fourth place in there as well. But that battle for those three spots, those three European competition spots, obviously everyone wants fourth place because everyone wants that Champions League money. But yeah, I think all the teams from fourth to all the way down to where Rayo Vallecano is, which is 13th, are still all from like within reach of each other, and they're gonna play against each other. And we all say it all the time. It's a real 6-pointer opportunity, and that's really what it's probably gonna come down to. It that when we look at this table at the end of the season, those teams that took advantage of those opportunities got their positive results, maybe got grinded it out from those games. So, and I think that it's fairly open for any of these teams that just catches lightning in a bottle, and next thing you know, they're in fourth, fifth, or sixth place in La Liga. And I think that is, and you mentioned it, like people need to start watching La Liga a lot more because you're missing out on the other football that's being played here besides Barcelona and Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. Like there is a lot of quality. Like I remember praising Iago Aspas for years because of how good he was, and I thought it was impressive that he stayed so loyal to Celta Vigo for so many years, because I was like, this guy could play anywhere else. I think he would be a very good striker to have on your team, and I think that's the thing that people that try to shit on La Liga, like it's only two teams, because they also disrespect Atletico Madrid, but it's more than just 2 or 3 teams in this league. Like any of these teams can ruin your season, and we've seen it. Also, we've had years where La Liga sweeps the European competitions. So
more than a few.
Few.
Spain has had so much success in the European competitions. Yes, it blows my mind that like you usually get from Prem fans, but in general, right? Like I'm not saying it's completely slept on, but to say that it's like a farmers league, it just shows me that you're probably only watching Premier League and whatever international soccer you can absorb to get away with being like a diehard fan. Like I don't know, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A is insane. We could talk about that another day, but yeah, man, there's a lot of good football being played.
Exactly.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at BellyUpSports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right. Premier League. And obviously this is where all the money comes in, but not for me. But because I don't get paid by these leagues. But uh, but yeah, I'm gonna say Premier League is weird this year. This is probably, and
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
fair.
I love that it's weird. I love that how bizarre it is. I'm hoping Max is getting up there in your guys' standings for. I don't know what the challenge. I don't know what happened. Does loser have to do anything in that?
It's still to be determined. There's going to be a winner thing too, I think. But yeah, we kind of more importantly, man, it was just like there's like a whole inner debate about ball knowledge and this and that. So it's just keeping receipts.
I mean, fair enough. You know, just yeah. No, I get that part. But start things off with the teams that are currently in relegation. We
Yeah.
have in 28th place Southampton with 5 points
Yeah, the point. I mean, they're the worst team in the league. They are. I
by
mean, there's
far.
no. Yeah, it is what it is. Anybody who watched the Spurs game today knows. It was 5-0 at halftime. You have fans leaving the stadium at the 32nd, 35th minute, whenever it was. I can only imagine paying to go to a game, only seeing a third of it, and being so disgusted with what I saw that I'm out. So again, but I live here, not over there, so maybe it's different. But yeah, bro. I mean, they'll be the first team going back down, and I think they were in most fans' relegation predictions for this season anyway. You know, could have seen them back up, cool, but it felt like Sheffield last season. Like it's inevitable, and we kind of know that they'll create some problems here and there for teams, but they're just probably gonna get dunked on. So it is what it is. The big surprise in the whole relegation zone is Wolves, by far. Like I think Gary O'Neill got sacked, if I'm correct.
Yeah, they I believe they did sack them.
Yeah,
They're currently in 19th place with only 9 points. It's
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 rough.
it's been interesting to see what's been going on with Wolves. I feel like their point total doesn't necessarily dictate how they've been playing because I've watched a few Wolves games. I mean obviously they're losing games. There's no sugarcoating it, but I mean I feel like their record isn't as I'm not saying that this is like a mid-table team by any means. I mean, I think if you watch them play, you would be like maybe they're outside of the relegation zone, but they just haven't gotten the results their way, man, and that's just kind of what it comes down to with the Premier League. But yeah, Wolves, and it's not good when you lose when you fire your manager. I'm sure interim manager bump up and all that cool stuff, but
Yeah.
um, I think Nuno Espirito Santo is like a name that has been floating around to bring him back to Wolves. Which I'm actually I remember why he left Wolves because he took the Tottenham job, but and then obviously that didn't pan out. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they need to go back to being the Portuguese team.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I mean, he's at Forest, right? So it's like, I mean, that's a great position that he's got that team in. I think with Wolves, it's just considering where they left last season, it's rough, man. It's they were mid-table. They were a tough side to play against. They upset City last season with that crazy Chan goal. I think I don't know, man. I can't point to. I mean, I know why they're bad. Like they're bad simply because they just can't keep anybody at the back of the net. As bad as Southampton is, they've allowed 4 more goals over the course of the 16 games that have been played so far. 40 goals in 16 games is insane. Like you have to be fucking terrible to let in 40 goals in 16 games. Like that's if you can't keep anybody at the back of the net, it doesn't matter who you have up front to score, right? Like I mean, and they have some ballers up front. Mateus Cunha, who I would love to see come to Arsenal because I think he's so versatile, despite whatever might happen on the disciplinary front. Mario Lemina, who in his own right was captain, just got stripped of that, by the way. That whole altercation at the end of the last game. So, and now I think Nelson Semedo, who's a decent right back, former Barcelona player. They got some ballers, man, but I think what happened to this team, and if I could pinpoint to one thing, it's defense and probably a little bit caused by Kilman leaving. That center back leaving, and I think he went to West Ham. I want to say it was West Ham. Somebody correct me, if I'm wrong.
I mean, they had some significant losses. Obviously, I think who was the winger that went to Chelsea?
I mean,
Neto.
To be fair, with Wolves, I don't think he's major just because he was always fucking injured, man. He was more injury prone than I feel like Dembele was at Barcelona, and that is saying something.
Mhm.
It's cool that he hasn't had to deal with that at Chelsea, but I expect that to be a problem at Chelsea too. I don't think he's magically going to get better.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, man. To me, they had the pieces under Gary O'Neill, a good manager. I still think he's a good manager. Just had a lot of bad luck. And to be fair, Wolves, I think it was like when the snowball started going, it was too hard to stop it. If you go look at it, I believe across the entire league, no one had a tougher schedule than them to open up. Like the
Oh
first
yeah.
2 months of the league was terrible for Wolves.
I mean,
Um,
and I mean, you and me could probably attest to with Arsenal when that one season where they immediately was like Liverpool, Manchester City just to kick off the season, and it was everyone's like, "Oh, this team is trash," and obviously Arsenal then goes on the run that they did after those results, and but it's not easy coming. It's a huge confidence killer. You have to start off your year so strong early on, and so it's not ideal. It's never how you want to kick off your season, but unfortunately, someone has to have like the raw end of the stick. Um, but yeah, no Wolves that yeah, and then Ipswich Town. Obviously, they have made their the long-awaited return to the Premier League. Everyone was excited to see this team. I think I think anybody was also wouldn't be surprised that this team was just up and down, like it was just gonna
mhm.
happen for them. I don't think they're completely out just yet. I think that the relegation battle is going to be a lot closer than people think. I think there's like just to think about Leicester City, Everton, Crystal Palace, West Ham United, all teams with under 20 points. That if Ipswich Town can find some form, maybe take advantage of facing off against any of those teams, it could be a different tale for Ipswich, and maybe they're able to stay afloat. But I think the relegation battle, specifically for that 18th place spot, it's something to keep an eye on for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Ipswich, I mean, it's like they haven't been good, but they haven't been that bad either. They had
Mm-hmm.
moments, right? So getting their first win at Spurs in the Premier League is also kind of hilarious. Um, but I think that like, good young players, I kind of I think I picked them to narrowly avoid the relegation and get 17th. If they stay in 18th, I mean, it wouldn't be a terrible loss on that front either. But they got good young talents, man. If you haven't watched Ipswich, go watch them. Liam Delap, the striker, will probably move on at some point. Probably in the summer. I wouldn't be surprised. Whether it's going to, I think he's a Man City product, but whether it's going to Arsenal, going to Chelsea, I don't know if Arsenal keep it that low key on the striker front. I hope not, anyway. But other guys too, Omari Hutchinson, Jack Clark, like these are attackers that cause other big teams problems. So, Ipswich kind of doing what I think what everybody expected, maybe even outperforming expectations a little bit, just considering how bad guys like Wolves and Southampton have been so far. Could they overtake guys like Leicester City? Maybe Everton loses a little bit of form and drops down. I don't know. I think they're gonna be the ones kind of in that relegation battle, genuinely going in and out of it as the season progresses, kind of how Luton Town was last season. And ultimately Luton Town got relegated, but I still think there's a good chance that they have to hopefully stay up.
Yeah, exactly. And now the European competition is the Europa Conference League spot is currently with sixth place Aston Villa with 25 points. Um, the intriguing story now in that fifth place that's going to be the Europa League spot is Man City with 27 points, also coming off of a lot of huge loss to Manchester United. Also one of those where it's like I don't know who's necessarily David and Goliath in this story because both teams desperately needed to win. When I saw Man City score the goal, the opener, I was like, okay, Man City is just gonna do their thing, and then Lord and behold, man, Bruno Fernandes, I believe Bruno Fernandes scored the first goal, and then uh, I don't remember the kid's name, but
Ahmad Diallo.
yeah, he just puts it in, and yeah, man, the theater of dreams, bro. Just
It's
what
crazy,
a
man. Yeah,
what a
that game.
performance.
Yeah, what a performance. Ahmad Diallo had a great performance. But I feel like I've been saying this forever, man. Like probably since like the first month of the season, I think I was saying Ahmad to me is the one attacker that has to start every game. Like if you have to pick one, it shouldn't be Garnacho, Should it be Rashford? Doesn't even have to be Højlund necessarily, depending. Although I think Højlund has now made a case why he should always try to be the starting striker. Definitely doesn't have to be Mount. Doesn't have to even be Bruno. I think Amad Diallo is the one attacker you absolutely have to start every game. I know he has a little bit of an injury problem too, but like Garnacho, Rashford, bro, rightfully dropped for the game today, and not benched, like dropped entirely from the roster. I do think those are two players that United for Rashford should be okay with letting go of, and with Garnacho's case could be okay with letting go of. Like, he's 20 years old, man. I think he's like how I don't know how long we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt on the age thing in terms of being able to see his potential. I think he's a good young talent, but I don't think he's this revolutionary winger. I think his stock is decently high. I think United could potentially sell him and get someone who, I don't know, is going to be a better fit under Amorim. But anyway, discussion for another day. Performance was good, man. Like at least in the ways that you want United to be good, which right now is just trying for everything. It's kind of sad that that's where the fucking bar is right now. But trying for everything, putting 110% effort in, and just buying into Amorim's system and trying to execute the best you can. And that's what happened today, bro. That and City are in shambles.
So you kind of were comparing Real Madrid to Man City, but obviously you said Man City's significantly worse than Real Madrid's situation.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Could you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what is it about Man City that they are just like the meme, which is a very graphic meme that I wish I didn't see on Twitter, which was just everybody taking a turn with Man City. Once again, Twitter has become
interesting.
If it's not soccer, for some reason, I just get a lot of porn, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that off because I have my nieces around a lot, and that's not something that I have in my algorithm. I have never searched porn on Twitter.
It's just being a dude, bro.
Just being a dude.
Just being a dude on a life, day in the life of a dude on Twitter. Yeah, man. So City's not City. I've been saying for all these weeks they're not in crisis mode yet. I think now losing this game, you kind of do cement it a little bit, right? You can take it with a grain of salt, sure. But what I mean by the comparison I made earlier is that Pep still seems to be, despite all of this, despite only having one win in the last 11, he's still relying on the same talents and the same like gut instinct, if you will, that he's been relying upon all season. Hasn't really changed it at all. The personnel haven't changed all that much. Kyle Walker is still somehow on the fucking field, and they just keep losing. It's like he's gonna go down his way too. He's not gonna try to adjust. Like he's just gonna be himself and will go down with the ship, so to speak. And in some ways, I guess that's respectable. Like I'm sure Ange from Spurs would be fucking proud because he's done the same thing literally in so many games, last season and this one. But yeah, man, it's they're just in a really interesting place. I've said this before on our own show. I think City right now is just kind of realizing that it has somewhat of a recruitment issue, a recruitment problem. I think they had a fantastic run, if you will, of just serial championships, but the players that have carried them are still being heavily relied upon to carry them, and the talent they brought in to supplement that group really isn't all that great. Mateus Nunes, not all that great. Kovacic, good, but has more than a few average games. Gundogan's level has dropped off fucking entirely. Bernardo Silva's level has dropped off significantly. Foden is a ghost of his previous year self. Like, player of the year, Foden is gone. I have no idea where the fuck he is. De Bruyne has just slowed down with age. I mean, it is what it is. And Haaland can't get service from the players around him. Like, there's just so much wrong going on. And then the back line, Kyle Walker's not what he used to be anymore. It was a pace merchant before. The pace is kind of gone. Diaz is making stupid fouls. Akanji, same shit. Rico Lewis might be the only one playing like halfway decently, in my opinion. So there's just a lot going on with City where it's like with Real Madrid before, right? It's like you just don't have that many problems. Mbappe and Ancelotti are probably your biggest issues. Chouameni hasn't been the greatest this season, and injuries. But outside of that, like if you guys, again, just shift the thinking, you can fix this problem. City, I don't know where you start. And then you have the looming verdict of like 130 charges now, not 15, 130 charges, right? The case is done, and now we're going to find out what happens to that. So I don't know, man. Pep got extended. If I were him, I would seriously be contemplating what happens if I get fired and how much money I make. Because he did extend his contract. They got to pay it out if they fire him. So we're on that territory now. If any other manager, if this had happened to any other manager, they would have been let go. It only hasn't happened yet because it's Pep.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the fact that they haven't essentially kind of reloaded this team. Like, the difference of teams that have to rebuild is because they kept their players for way too long that they needed to, and they didn't necessarily essentially reload it. Kovacic is not a guy you reload with. Like, if you're gonna be that team that goes and splurges the money and says fuck financial fair play, you got to go and try to get those guys that fit to what Pep wants to do, and keep this team. This midfield is not the same midfield from when they won the Champions League. The players just in general, this is not the same team. You should have been replenishing the team, and unfortunately they didn't do it. I think which is weird because I mean they had no problem moving on for Sergio Aguero. They had no problem moving on from many players that gave them their first titles, but something about this period of Man City, and I think that's also kind of something that happened with Real Madrid too, to a fault as well, as they were just so loyal to that team, that midfield of Casemiro and Cruz and Modric, that you kept those Camavinga and Valverde and them on the wayside. Luckily, they stayed very patient, and I think the midfield is still not as bad as some Real Madrid fans have complained about. I mean, if that's your concern, I'm more concerned of Mbappe still trying to figure out his role when we're half a season in. But yeah, I think like you mentioned, Man City is in a really peculiar situation, and I think if it was any other manager, he'd be given the door. But it's Pep Guardiola, the guy that the true mastermind of all things, and so. But like as far as you can tell, like what do you expect to see in that second half of the season for Man City?
Um, Probably a little bit more of the same. Like whether City fans want to accept it or not, they're in a top 4 to maybe top 6 race this season. I think that's okay. Like this team's been operating at such a high level for such a long time that they've literally gotten fans like myself to start calling the Premier League a farmers league, which it kind of has been, bro. Like it's like fucking the 2000 or the 2010s Bundesliga. Like it's just Bayern winning every year, or same era for Juventus in the Serie A, just Juve winning every year. That's what the Premier League had become. It's just City winning every single year. One year Liverpool might win it. A couple years Arsenal might challenge them, but in reality, it's just City's league. These are humans, bro. Like they're gonna drop off at some point. It's just unfortunate for City fans that it all came crashing down at one moment and it wasn't gradual. But at least now we can all see like what the gaps are. And I'll be honest, man, that midfield is fucking atrocious. Like it just needs to be overhauled entirely. And maybe that's why they extended Pep, to like give him a little bit more time to do that, because the midfield that's been brought in just isn't good enough. But I think the second half of the season, I don't know, man. I think you're looking at probably a 4th place finish, I would say. 4th, but it wouldn't surprise me if somehow Forest tries to keep things interesting. If Villa gets back to what we know them to be, they've also been a shell of themselves. Villa's been so fucking disappointing. The game against Forest this past weekend sums them up perfectly. Ton of potential, ton of opportunity, maybe a little bit of controversy, but somehow still fucking throw the game away against Forest. At home, I believe too. I believe it was at home. But yeah, man, I think City, just because I expect Arsenal to still find another gear after the holiday. They always do. They've done it the last 2 years. If they didn't this year, I'd be surprised. Chelsea is probably the best offensively flowing team, and then you have Liverpool who's leading everything. So City probably have to finish 4th.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you already mentioned the teams, but 4th place, Nottingham Forest with 28 points. You mentioned Arsenal in 3rd with 30, Chelsea in 2nd place with 34. I mean, can't make fun of young Kip anymore. And of course in 1st place, Liverpool with 36 points. A team that lost their manager, Jurgen Klopp, obviously wanted to take a break for mental reasons, and I believe he has like a little role right now with RB Leipzig.
Yeah. Red Bull Group in general.
Red Bull Group. So that sounds fun. But I mean, obviously he's not going to stay away from the game. But he's not coaching, and at least not dealing with the stresses of coaching. But you bring in an Arne Slot, and most people, if you're a Manchester United fan, you're like, oh, those Eredivisie guys, they don't work out. And this guy who made almost, I don't even think any sort of signing for Liverpool, and if they did, I didn't pay attention. Um, Darwin Nunez gets benched. At least I feel like he's been getting. I haven't seen him.
He's hard bench, bro. I mean, at least in my opinion, he definitely favors Jota.
And this team is pretty good. And I mean, even in the Champions League, fairly solid. I mean, maybe the guy that knew how to coach Feyenoord, that also dethroned Ajax, maybe that guy was the guy that, that people should have been paying more attention to, not a certain other bald Dutch guy. But yeah, man. But before what do you think about Liverpool? Did you even think Liverpool would be in this position going into the season?
No, well, not that they wouldn't be in this position. I thought it'd be difficult. So when the season started, I had Liverpool finishing third. A lot of people saw a big drop off.
Did you feel like there'd be like an adjustment period?
Kind of, because it's a big legendary manager, and then historically, right, in the Premier League, when big legendary leaders exit, there's just always a gap. When Wenger left, and then when Emery took over, he got fired within 8 months. Fergie, they've been winning over a decade, and they still haven't replaced that dude. It just, there's always something, right? So you have to account for that, and Liverpool's history, that's the case too. But I do still also think that Liverpool were arguably the best team in the Premier League, even as recently as last season. Like you got to remember, Liverpool controlled the Premier League title race up until April last year, right? And then Arsenal and City were able to just stay more consistent in the final stretch of the season, and it came down to the last day. But Liverpool had the lead. At January, they were like 8 points clear or some shit like that, 5 or 8 points clear. So, Klopp left a good team in Arne Slot's hands. The only hole I saw on the pitch, to be honest, was defensive mid. Is the only hole that I really saw. And I did think that their contract scenarios would pose to be issues at some point. And I still believe that. But at the end of the day, like, the most impressive thing Arne Slot has done is two things. One is turn Ryan Gravenberch back into his normal position. He was kind of at a defensive pivot at Ajax. He's doing that again. And we're seeing now, we kind of all forgot, but we're seeing now how good he's that position. But the other thing is that he's given Liverpool more control. That's the reason why that they are performing the way they're performing. It's not the most impressive performances, right? It's like they can play free-flowing football. It reminds me of Arsenal, like even last season, right? Like they could play free-flowing football, and when they're on and they're attacking at full threat, like very few teams can stop them. But they play for control and they wait for their opportunities. Klopp's Liverpool never did that. Klopp's Liverpool was so fun to watch as a neutral because as soon as he got the ball, he took off as fast as he fucking could to the other side of the pitch, and he had the players to do it amongst Mane, Firmino, Salah. So Liverpool is they have more control now, and they're controlling games, and that's what makes them really scary for this season if they can keep it going. Salah feels inevitable. The guy's honestly, man, he's having a fucking Ballon d'Or season. Let's just say it now. He's having a Ballon d'Or season. If he keeps his shit going into the second half of the year, I don't know, man. Between him and Lamine Yamal and like Rafinha, and Jude might get his numbers back up. Like next year's Ballon d'Or race might be crazy. And
then also no international competition that could.
Yeah, it's just purely club ball, bro. If Liverpool goes deep, like I'm telling you, man, they might get a Ballon d'Or winner back at Anfield. But the thing is, like I said, the one thing that will pose a massive threat to this title charge is the contract situation. Okay, if Virgil resigns, cool. If I don't expect Trent to resign, I think Trent's gone. In my opinion, I think Trent's gone. I think either the lure of Real Madrid or Barcelona is too big, and he's been there his whole life. I think he just wants something new. All young people want that at some point. So I think he's gone. But I think even if he does, Connor Bradley's still there and a pretty viable right back, in my opinion. I think it's always reinforced. The other one is the big one is Salah. I don't know how you replace that man. They could have every attacker they have right now, and I don't think anybody actually replaces him. Not Gakpo, not Chiesa, who they did sign, is probably going to ship back to Italy at some point.
Oh man, I forgot that Chiesa's there.
Yeah, he was the signing. He was the one signing they had this summer for next to nothing. It was like 9 or 14 million or something. And he's done nothing. Like I think he suited up like once for Liverpool. Um so it's a good team. I mean, it's a good team. I wonder how durable they'll last. And just as long as the contracts are somewhat of a distraction, I'm wondering how long Arne Slot can deal with it. Like before it gets annoying and becomes too much in the media.
And I think that would be the big club manager moment that I think we'll see for Arne Slot because I mean for Feyenoord and the Eredivisie, that's a big club, but we're talking about Liverpool big, and that's worldwide. Like everyone in the world, there's a ton of Liverpool fans everywhere. Like, and so I think that you mentioned that. I think that that's where we're gonna see like when this is how we'll define Arne Slot's first year with Liverpool. Because yes, it was very much just steer the ship. You got the tools that you needed already in your arsenal, so you're fine. It's just making sure you put them in their right place. And I think he's done a fairly good job with that. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow with Liverpool is who they keep from those three players that you mentioned. And I think it'll be I think positively if you're able to get Mo Salah, I think Mo Salah is probably the priority amongst the fans to keep. Um, Virgil van Dijk, I think some may. I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to keep Virgil van Dijk, but I don't think he's the same Van Dijk from years before, if that makes any sense. And
Yeah.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, I don't think that there's like a lot of people that are, fighting for him to stay on the team. Um, but they wouldn't say no to him staying at the same time. But yeah, I think Liverpool is an interesting story. I kind of want to see how they pan out in the second half. I think that's how we're gonna learn a little bit more about Arne Slot now that everybody got an idea of Arne Slot ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that second half is going to be very telling from Liverpool. All right, second place Chelsea or third place Arsenal. Which one you want to tackle first?
Um, I'll do Arsenal. I think Chelsea's very straightforward. At the end of the day, Arsenal is they're man, the title race isn't over yet, but the margins are dangerously close, and that's how I feel about this Arsenal team. I think they're the one team in the top four race that has to reinforce in January. I really don't believe that any other team has to. City probably does to maybe stop the bleeding. Like they could use a defensive mid to be Rodgers' replacement, but like Arsenal to give them another edge, they need an attacker, and not just any attacker, one that's versatile enough to play ideally either left winger or striker. Because this team, man, is they'll control a lot of games. I mean, we saw it against Everton this past weekend. They controlled the whole damn game, but just not have enough cutting edge and X factor at the end of the day to convert even the scrappy chances, right? That's what they were. A lot of those chances were just scrappy chances. Some of them were good saves by Pickford, but for the most part, it just perfectly epitomized Arsenal. They won't let up a goal. They'll control the whole damn game, but still not get the full 3 points and get the game over the line. Saka can only do so much with this team. So I think they need someone else, someone on the left who's going to legitimately, basically, as much as I love Martinelli and Trossard, push them aside, own the position, and just not be afraid to go at opponents and defenders and open up opportunities for other players around them. That's what we need. Odegaard and Saka can't do it by themselves. But Arsenal right now is a good team, not a great one. Despite what they're doing in Champions League, man. Champions League, they're third in that fucking Super League table. And I don't think it's an accident. I really think they've been that good in Champions League. I just think teams played them different. That's where we're at in the whole cycle of Arteta right now, man. Like, we're just beholden in the league anyway to how teams play against us. And that's what it's going to be. Like, if they set up the way Sean Dyche set up with Everton, it's going to be difficult. We don't have the player with the X factor to help us break down low blocks or just score something out of nothing. Like, we don't have that guy. Saka sometimes, but even then, he just can't do it by himself when he's double or triple covered. So we need that. And I think I don't know, you look at other teams, they have that. Liverpool has that in Salah.
Who's that player in January you think Arsenal should be going after?
Man, if I had to pick a realistic scenario, I'm gonna go as far as, and shout out Max because I think he kind of planted the seed a little bit, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's Kolo Muani potentially. And I say that because he's just fallen out of favor entirely with PSG. This is someone that I think with the right players around him, we could get a lot from, and the price tag will be right. Because he's fallen out, we'll either get him for a short-term loan with like a buy option for next to nothing loan fee and wages covered, or we get him for a next to nothing transfer fee because Luis Enrique just wants him out.
Which is a very on point Arsenal.
Yeah, it is. That's what I'm saying. It's so on brand with Arsenal, but the ceiling with this player is there. Like, we've seen it. He's only started in a World Cup final. Like, he has the intangibles. It's just, can we get the best out of him in a 6-month period, and then is he a viable long-term option after that? Right? Like that's all that is to be determined. But the player I would want us to get, like Acuna from Wolves, I think he's someone who could play a striker. He could be a 10. He could be a left winger. Like someone like him or like Alexander Isak is probably the dream signing. Like a forward that can bang it from anywhere. He knows how to play left wing. Very Thierry Henry-esque with his movements, even with his finishing to an extent. Like that's the dream attacker signing. But I would definitely settle for Acuna, for a Mohamed Kudus, or like I mentioned, the most realistic, I think, if we're smart about it, Kolo Muani.
Yeah, I actually like that you mentioned Koulibaly. That's a guy that I was fairly high on. I think it's crazy that PSG, like I don't like, sometimes I just don't know what but then again I can't say anything. They're fucking undefeated right now. But which I mean it's Liga. But still, like, yeah, I think that I think for him just a change of scenery. I think I don't know when, but Arsenal just became one of the most healthiest cultures now in the Premier League too. And maybe it's because that the young players that are on that team, and just now that you have players there that are happy to be there and want to be there, which is very much a 180 from years before. And so I think that that's also a positive, and I think that could be very helpful for Koulibaly. And I think even for like Kai Havertz could be like a good example of that as well. Like, from the dumpster fire that was Chelsea and to come here, maybe not necessarily the best player to use as an example, but still, I mean, has come up big for Arsenal in its moment as well. So I think Koulibaly, I think and the way you presented that one, I was like, this is very on point for Arsenal. I mean, that's exactly how they got Odegaard. Like,
yeah, no, it's the same thing, right? It's like they'll make calculated bets, the club will, and it's going to lead to, again, a signing that feels like a smart signing with a lot of room for potential. And that's not even just like Odegaard. That's Fabio Vieira before we sent him back. That's even, I guess you could say, to an extent, like low risk opportunities like Raheem Sterling, which that hasn't really panned out. I don't even know if it will, but. Yeah, I think with Kolo Muani, it is a shame. He started only 2 of the 10 games, that they've played. And, I mean, he's got hardly any minutes this season. He's 26. Like, bring him over. I mean, I know he's got experience on the wing. I don't know how much. I've seen most of his play at striker. But even then, I'd be down to push Kai to the limit, and let's just see what happens. But if we don't, go on to win the title this season, because, again, it is still a long shot with Liverpool playing the way they are, I think we need to see Arsenal winning some kind of silverware this season. Has to happen. I would be over the fucking moon if it was a Champions League, but it probably won't be. So I feel like a good FA Cup run, a good Carabao Cup run, get some kind of silverware, get some good, experience under the belt in the final, and then we'll reinforce and then get ready to go again next season. But we'll find out. Arsenal, to me, are still in a good position.
I agree with that. I think last year where we didn't get a trophy out of anything, and we had to watch Manchester United win the fucking FA Cup pissed me off more than anything else, just because, even though, once again, fuck Manchester City, they shouldn't, I was rooting for Manchester United to win that game. But then as soon as I realized Manchester United was lifting that trophy, and we were just having the year that we were like, oh man, Arsenal, they could finally be doing something, and we come out empty-handed. And to that person that said, "What about the Community Shield? Go fuck yourself." I don't want to hear anything about that stupid trophy, especially after all those fucking Madridistas attacking, calling me a Barca fan because I said the Spanish Super Cup. No one gives a shit about that trophy. And then all of a sudden, I'm a Barca fan. All of a sudden, I'm a fucking Messi. I was like, you know what, Jose, I get it. I get it. I fucking get why you guys complain about Matrices as much.
Yeah, it's rough, bro. Yeah, fuck that community shield. I don't care. Like there were Arsenal fans who were happy, or like trolling City fans. I'm like, you guys are the reason why we're the laughing stock at the end of the season. Like we just need to keep our eyes on the prize. And I think look, I won't be mad, and I won't be I swear to God, I'm calling it now. If we don't win anything this season, I'm not gonna be calling Arteta out whatsoever. You couldn't pay me to say that shit. I don't see another manager that could take this specific group of players and do more with them than what we're doing now. So I still think he's the right guy. We just, again, got to add a few more reinforcements because it is what it is. We need more experience. But Arsenal will be in the title race until they're not, but they're still there. And Chelsea, man, the biggest shock, I mean, of the top four. I had Chelsea finishing like sixth, I think, sixth or seventh, based on where they kind of finished last year. They finished sixth again, but new manager coming in, about 150 players to deal with and try and sift through, making 11 out of. I think Enzo's been very, very direct
with the drama that is allegedly Enzo was bringing in as well.
Yeah, bro, all kinds of shit. Like it just sounded like a nightmare to deal with as a new manager while still trying to make this team competitive. And yet he's done it to an extent. Now he's got some great players on his hands, and the transfers he brought in this season seem to have worked even that much, right? Like Jade and Sancho's been halfway decent at times for sure. Neto's had his moments and looking good. Shit, the only ones that are looking
than
good.
usual.
Yeah. Cole Palmer is still doing Cole Palmer things. I think he's still kind of pretty damn consistent against the big six, but nonetheless, the team around him seems to step things up when the time is right. So Chelsea are in a title race, bro. I don't know how long it'll last. It kind of feels a little bit like Arsenal in their first title race recently, like a couple years ago, a few years ago. Like it feels like that. Like, yeah, they're probably in the race. We can say they're in the race, but do we feel like they realistically can keep up with not just Liverpool, but let's say Arsenal figure it out. Let's say City come back. Can they just deal with that? I don't know. I think top four is very viable for them, but as of right now, I mean, they're in second firmly. So, yeah, man, surprising everybody in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, I think going into this year, I thought Chelsea was just gonna stay being the dumpster fire that it is. And it's not like it's not like they're set on this in this standing table, because the second half things can happen, right? You know, you mentioned earlier about Pedro Neto's like injury history. Um, I'm not rooting for injuries by any means, but I'm just saying like the second half of the season could be very telling of what exactly we're gonna get from this Chelsea team. I mean, point blank, they spent a lot of money on this team, and when you spend a lot of money, you should be getting some sort of result out of it. And maybe it was just the coach. Maybe what maybe it was Tuchel. Maybe it was all the guys before they got to this point. And I mean, yeah, like we probably said it plenty of times, like coaching does make a big difference. It makes a huge difference. I mean,
Yep.
talking about Arteta, like I mean, it was like night and day from the time of Emery to now him, taking over. It's completely different.
Bro, you know what's crazy about that? Like, think about this. Like, look at what Pep is going through right now. Fucking scratching up his head and like doing all kinds of other crazy shit, stressed beyond belief with this group of what many would consider to be world-class talent. How do you think he would have been or reacted with what Arteta came into with Arsenal? Like, could you fucking imagine if he had to deal with like getting that much deadwood out? Like, I think so many Arsenal fans just forget about that, man. They just, when they think about like whether or not Arteta should be here or not, they forget where we were just like 4 or 5 seasons ago.
Having to sell yourself on the idea that Hector Bellerin is the guy.
Not even just him, bro. Like there were so many. David Luiz, like yeah, fuck it, Willian. Let's just sign him, bro. Like he'll be the same as he was at Chelsea. Fuck it.
I want to forget all about those signings, but
yeah, bro. Aubameyang carried this team for so long, man, so long. Like, and then that whole situation, dude. The drama with that, right? Like getting him out, like doing all those things. Like I think that's had it rough, and like everybody just acts like he's just been given this war chest of cash, like what Pep has been given his entire time at fucking City, and just say, all right, go win us titles. And it's shocking to everyone that he hasn't. Like, guys, come on, man. Like, think back, use your brains, and just remember where we were.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about like that roster in general. Just Nicolas Pepe, all the just like the boneheaded decisions that you had to like sell yourself on. That you're like, this might be the guy, like Lucas Torreira. I was so high on him. I don't know why I
Same.
was, but I was
He was
like,
a
oh
dog, bro. He
yeah,
was a
he was a
dog.
dog. He was a
Yeah.
dog, and I was just like, all right, this is our six, and he wasn't happy, and we heard all the drama that came from that guy. I was just like, Jesus Christ, I can't, we can't catch a break with anything. I remember there was a point where I was selling myself on the idea of Danny Ceballos, and I
Oh
was
my God.
just, I had to hype
Uh
myself up every year on one of these guys being the guy, and it was just like,
yeah, him, Guendouzi, like there's so many random dudes that we had so much hope for. And like I think again, fans don't realize that, right? Like we're still kind of operating the same way. Like we're like Mikel Arteta is still making younger player signings than as opposed to just splashing cash and going out and getting world-class stars. It's just the difference now is it's working, right? Because we have an identity, we have a true system, a manner in which we want to play. Does he get everything right? No. But he gets a hell of a lot more right than he gets wrong. And I think that the stuff he gets wrong, he's still technically, he is in his first managerial position as a first team manager. Like he will get better. And I don't think we'll find a manager, like I said, who's doing better than what Arteta's doing now, and definitely won't get one that cares as much about making Arsenal great again as it's not kind of Trump-ish to an extent, but making Arsenal great again as Arteta does. Like he legitimately wants Arsenal to be fucking, winning everything, right? And he cares so much deeply about the club, so much that he wants the culture to shift. I don't know if there's another manager right now who would do that.
yeah, exactly. Obviously, I already mentioned the relegation battle being the story to keep an eye on, at least for me, for the second half of the season. But what is a team or maybe a battle that you're kind of intrigued on for the second half of the season?
Man, you know what, bro? The sixth place spot, basically the Europa League spots, right, and Conference League spots, those are the ones outside top four that are super fucking interesting. Because keep in mind, right, Forest might drop off, right, from being top four right now. That's expected, I think. I think they're overperforming. But what's going to be the drop off realistically for them? It could be sixth, could be seventh. Bournemouth under Iraola still look like a pretty damn good team. Evan Nelson's still proving to be a pretty decent striker for them. And bro, Villa is one of the most infuriating teams in the league, hands down. They're the only team in the top half of the table, I think, that has a negative goal differential. This is a Champions League team. We're halfway through the season, and they're the only team in the top half that has a negative goal differential. They're just so up and down, man. So up and down. Like they play so well against the big teams, and they just shit the bed against teams that they should be. And even when they have prolific moments, like this past week against Forest, John Duran's goal was fantastic. Fucking beautiful header. But in the last 20 minutes, they capitulate and they give away 2 goals to Forest, and Forest wins. It's just, I don't know what to expect with this team. But then you layer on Fulham being good, Brighton being good, Spurs are down there, Brentford's having a better season than they've had in I don't know how many seasons. Dude, those European spots are up for grabs, and there's like 2 points separating all those teams that I just mentioned. So it's going to be wild.
Yeah, that's a good one to mention also. I mean, Premier League, this has been a weird season for the Premier League. Man City finally, hopefully, going to be dethroned. And I'm looking for some wood to knock on because, they do their things. And, that's all I'm going to say for that part.
Yep.
But it has been a bizarre year. The Premier League has definitely been the most bizarre league. I think everything, maybe Serie A you can make an argument for. Because that's also been a very I mean, Atalanta right now is on top of the Serie A. So I mean there is that. But yeah, I think it's the second half of the season is gonna be really exciting. And I can't wait for what 2025 has in store for the Premier League and La Liga. But Jose, always a pleasure to have you on, man. At this point I think you're competing with Kelcey for the Super Sub award now. But
I'll take it.
But yeah, man, obviously 2025 for Golz TV, man. What's the big things that are coming up over there at Golz?
Oh man. Well, first off, again, Hector, I mean, man, I appreciate you having me on. I hope I win that Super Sub of the Year award. If it's not an award, it should be a thing. Yeah, bro. I mean, Golz TV, man, we're growing. 2024, massive year for us as a company and as a platform. We've tripled in size. It's only going to get bigger and better with the mobile app launching to kick off 2025. So, guys, stay tuned. And if you haven't heard of us yet, man, or just frankly just want to go check out more content like Insert Name FC, guys, go to Golz TV, GOLZ.TV. The mobile app launching very soon. Make a big announcement. And I'll tease this a little bit now, man. We got another big show announcement, a series coming soon to the platform with a very visible personality. So get ready for that, man. A lot of big things coming to the platform. Of course, as always, you can find Insert Name FC there as well.
Appreciate it as always, Jose. We're gonna go ahead and take a break, and then we're going into. As a matter of fact, the final just happened. Congratulations to Club America for their third straight Liga MX title, defeating Monterrey. I think it was 3-2 on aggregate. So the evil empire strikes. Honda not only is an MLS Cup champion, but also a third time in a row Liga MX champion. So
what a spoiled fan, bro. That's crazy.
yeah, I actually said that to him when we previewed the final. But yeah, always a pleasure, Jose. So we're gonna take a break, and then we're going into recapping the Liga MX final. So get ready for that.
Fight and win!
All right, guys. Stop me if you heard this before. Club America are your Liga MX champions yet again. America has defeated Monterrey 3-2 on aggregate. And yes, 3 times in a row, Liga MX champions. Well, you can say also back-to-back Apertura champions if you want to be salty about it. But yes, they won 3 straight Liga MX titles. Only 3 teams have been able to do that, which I believe is Chivas de Guadalajara and Cruz Azul and Club America now. I think now it's going for the 4-peat, right? Which I believe Chivas is the only team to have ever accomplished that. So, but that was like super back in the day. So, yeah, man. Holy hell. But all right, let's get down to the nitty-gritties. So the first leg, America takes it with a 2-1 victory. Monterrey had 53% of the possession. America also outshot Monterrey 13-7, 6 shots to Monterrey's 2 that were on target. The goals came from early coming on from Monterrey with Sergio Canales scoring in the 35th minute, but then America's Kevin Alvarez scored in the 39th and Alejandro Zendejas scoring in the 49th minute. And I actually thought that this was not that I predicted a win for any of the teams in the first leg, but I felt like it was going to be a close first leg enough to feel that there's still some pressure going into that second leg, which will be in Monterrey and Rayados Stadium. And I do feel like that's how it went down. A 2-1 win is still pretty close. It's not a blowout. It's not a 3-0. It's not a 5-2. It's none of that. It still could be anyone's game. And, there is no away goal rule. So, I mean, all Monterrey would have to do is just essentially win 1-0. And we're going to extra time and penalties, right? That's straightforward. Or even win 2-1. All they had to do is come out with a win to tie it on aggregate, and we would still have so leg 2 was still a very interesting game to follow. So there was still pressure from America to come on swinging to secure the victory, which is exactly what happened that second leg, which was a 1-1 draw for America. They obviously favored America. Monterrey had 71% of the possession, so they were trying, they were pushing, they were going for it. But this kind of goes back to America, man. They've been playing off that counterattack pretty frequently now this whole playoffs, and they have, they're like, all right, Monterrey have the possession, but we're gonna get our chances, and we're going to, or we're just gonna defend, and when we have our shot, we'll take it. But because, like I said, Monterrey had 71% of the possession. Monterrey outshot 21-4, 6 shots on target for Monterrey to America's 3. So while they had more shots, the more efficient team, weirdly enough, was America. The goals did come from Richard Sanchez in the 24th minute for America, which was a banger of a goal. Puts them in a 2-goal advantage at that point. And, Monterrey trying to get trying to get 2 goals in to equalize it, force extra time. But unfortunately, the second goal, the next goal for Monterrey, which was by Johan Rojas Echavarria, Echeverria, I'm gonna mess that up. Scores in the 85th minute mark. There's just not much time left. Like I said, man, America put on a solid defensive shift to secure their 16th Liga MX title 3 times in a row. I told you there was just something about America and the Liga MX playoffs right now that they're just built for these moments. Once again, I don't like saying this, but it's the truth, and it's unfortunately where we are right now. America is Liga MX. That's their royalty at this point. This is why they're the biggest club in Mexico. Someone can take shots at me, but let's be honest, America is one of the biggest brands. You have people that are jersey collectors that love the Club America jerseys, man. So yeah, man. Also, Cuauhtémoc Blanco, very sus. Very weird celebration, but hey, all right, man. Trying to force guys to give you a BJ. That was an interesting call on your part, but yeah, hey, to each its own, right? You're having your moment, America. Back on top of Liga MX, coming in as an AFC, had to play in the play-in round. So for all those people that maybe don't like me talking, that don't like that I talk smack about the play-in part, hey, a team that was in the play-in made it and won Liga MX. So I mean, and this is just gonna just inflate even more the egos of the Americanistas, because they're just gonna be like, it's like it doesn't matter where they finish, they're gonna find their way in the final. And I mean, I think a very enjoyable final. Like I said, man, if you guys aren't watching Liga MX, you're missing out on some great matches. I don't try to compete them with MLS. Like, it is what it is, but I love watching Liga MX. I grew up watching this league, and I'm not changing that for anybody. And also, it's still very much accessible for me because it's free. I can just turn on Univision and there's some Liga MX action. So there is that. But all right, guys, you guys been waiting for this, right? You guys have been waiting all year to find out who is going to be our Player of the Year award, right? The Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year. Well, that kicks off in a few minutes, but obviously, if you guys remember the intro, Edward was singing, and that's not changing because Edward is going to sing before we announce the Player of the Year award. So I would say sit back and relax, but let's be honest, it's probably not going to be enjoyable for anybody. But here is Edward singing for the Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year award.
I am so high, I can hear heaven. I am so high, I can hear heaven. Whoa, but heaven, no heaven, don't hear me. And they say that a hero could save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagle, watch as we all fly away. Someone told me love would all save us. But how can that be? Look what love gave us. A world full of killing and blood spilling that world never came. And they say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagles, watch as we all fly away. Now that the world isn't ending, it's love that I'm sending to you. It isn't the love of a hero. That's why I fear won't do. And they say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. Now hold on to the wings of the eagles. Watch as we all fly away. And they're watching us, they're watching us as we all fly away. And they're watching us as we all fly away. Yeah. And they're watching us as we all fly away. Yeah. Whoa.
Thank you, Edward, for that. Yeah. Who would have thought in this episode you would not only hear Rick Astley, but you would also hear Chad Kroeger of Nickelback. Yeah, this was, and hey, fitting. It's Hero, right? You know, and here we are with the 2024 Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year award. When you think of Roosevelt Spencer, you think of integrity, brilliance, energy, artistic, and comical. All right, like, you know, one of the things, and also dependability and reliability is one of the cornerstones that is Roosevelt Spencer. And I'm sure Roosevelt's daughter is hearing this, and she's very proud that this is the man that's going to be her father. Yes, your father is quite the man. He is the true man, and you know we love him. We love that he is a man, and that's why we named our Player of the Year award winner, the Player of the Year award after Roosevelt Spencer. Because unlike the MLS, we actually acknowledge real men for our Player of the Year awards. I'm not taking a jab at Landon Donovan, that little bitch. Anyways, so this year was pretty interesting. When this year started, I honestly thought that Olivier Giroud would be the guy we end up awarding it to because of how frequent we were announcing Olivier Giroud. But that was all for naught because, well, at third place, we have Erling Haaland. That's right. The last year's winner, Erling Haaland, didn't have quite the year. Didn't have the best year. He did have his moments. He did have his moments of brilliance, but not up to the par that he had last year. And so, unfortunately, he finishes third. Second is our lovable loser, Harry Kane. Harry Kane close to getting himself some sort of somewhere. And I mean, you know, barring how things end up over there in Bayern Munich, we don't know. But Harry Kane finished second in votes and the winner. But before we get to the winner, I would like to say thank you to SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an amazing ticketing site application, depending on how you use it, that helps you get your tickets for all live events, from sporting events, concerts, theater, comedy shows. What if it's live? SeatGeek's got it. And the simplicity that SeatGeek has is an amazing system. If it is red, that means the deal is not good. The price for these seats are not worth it. Keep looking through the app, keep scrolling. You're going to find your ideal seat. And then if it's green, that means this is a great deal. These are great seats for the price. Buy them. These are the tickets for your event. And if you guys if the simplicity of SeatGeek isn't getting you all excited like it does for me and Edward and Spencer, well, here's a little salt, a little sugar on top of that for you. If you use the code BellyUpSports, you will save $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. Once again, use the code BellyUpSports. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. SeatGeek, life's the event. we have the tickets. And our 2024 Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year is Robert Lewandowski for the third time in the podcast history, which is this is literally the fourth installment of the Player of the Year award. Congratulations. You are yet again the Player of the Year. Congratulations, Robert Lewandowski. Nose for the goal, and we're voted for him a shit ton of times. But it wasn't just us voting for it, though. It was also you guys, you, the listeners. You guys went into that Google document and started putting in your votes, and Robert Lewandowski won a good amount. So not only is it from Edward picking Robert Lewandowski, but it was also you guys voting for Robert Lewandowski that got him in this position. There was no one near him. He was clear and cut. He is the 2024 Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year award. So congratulations, Robert Lewandowski, whatever you want to call this man. Lewandowski, I guess at this point for this podcast, for now being a three-time Roosevelt Spencer's Player of the Year award. We love you and we respect you. And no one else is more fitting to be acknowledged by Roosevelt Spencer than by Robert Lewandowski. But all right, so that is Player of the Year. Some games to watch this weekend, man. So we have some African Nations Cup qualifying matches. I don't know what the African Nations Cup is, but it's interesting. Don't think maybe it is AFCON, but I don't know. But we have a big matchup. We got Ghana versus Nigeria. Ghana's been kind of bad, but hey, it's still names against names. So we'll see how that goes in that aspect. In Ligue 1, there is not going to be any Ligue 1 action, but we do have Coupe de France. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and see what's going on over there in the Coupe de France, the tournament that happens in France over there. In the Bundesliga, we got Bayern Munich taking on RB Leipzig. So we'll see if Bayern Munich can extend their current lead that they have right now in the Bundesliga. And we have Bayer Leverkusen taking on SC Freiburg. A very interesting matchup, especially where these teams are at in the standings in the Bundesliga. So keep an eye on that one. Should be a very juicy matchup right there. In the Serie A, we got Hellas Verona taking on AC Milan. We said what we said about AC Milan, so we'll just leave it at that. But maybe they can start getting some results. And then we got Torino taking on Bologna. Another good juicy matchup right there. In La Liga, we got Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid, Edward versus Spencer in our Jersey Bet Challenge. So if you guys are curious, right now is the where the standings are for that. I'm going to give you a heads up. We won't post the first half Jersey Bet result, the standings, until this game is played. But as of right now, as it stands, Edward is on top of the table with 2 wins, 1 loss, giving him 6 points in the table. In second place, there is me with 1 win, 1 loss, and 2 draws with 5 points. And then Spencer with a loss and 2 draws, so he's right now at 2 points. So this matchup between Atletico Madrid and Barcelona is really crucial for Spencer because obviously if Edward wins this matchup again, he's now has 9 points. He has a 4-point lead against me, and Spencer is not looking good for him. But on the bright side, there's no singing bet, so at least there's that. But if Spencer does win, that does tie things up with me and him. So then going into the second half of the season, it does make things a little bit juicier for that Jersey bet. Like I said, that's how the standings are right now. How this weekend dictates could kind of change the table. So we will post the table after Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid, just so you guys are in the know of how that's all going to transpire right there. And then we have Celta Vigo versus Real Sociedad. I think a really good matchup between two teams that are kind of in this near the vicinity of each other to try to jump over each other. I think is probably one of those opportunities. In the Premier League, we got Aston Villa taking on Man City, talking about potential jump over here. Aston Villa and Manchester City are also in that conversation. And Tottenham versus current first place team in the Premier League, Liverpool. So we'll see how those juicy matchups turn out. But obviously this is not all the matches that are happening this weekend, but it's a good beginner's guide for you guys if you guys aren't entirely fully in the know of the beautiful game. So there's that. So we're gonna take one more break, and then we're gonna wrap this show up in a pretty little bow for you guys for this end of the year episode.
Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of Belly Up Sports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at RighteousFelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
All right, guys, that is episode 199, our end of the year episode. I want to give a thank you to Kelcey Coyne and Jose Tellez for coming on to talk the standings with me. These two guys are kind of becoming pillars of Insert Name FC now. But check out Belly Up Sports, man, BellyUpSports.com. Lots of articles being constantly written. A lot of soccer articles that have been coming out over there on Belly Up Sports. So especially read that up from our good guy over there. So check out BellyUpSports.com. Maybe that's not the only thing you care about. Maybe you want to see what's going on, especially with like all these free agency stuff that's going on in the MLB. Maybe you want to figure out what's going on with baseball. How big is Juan Soto joining the New York Mets? How huge of that is that for them? The Kyle Tucker trade hurts my feelings a little bit, but Astros did get Isaac Paredes, did get a top prospect in Cam Smith, and Wisniewski, I mean, he's a hometown kid. Who knows? Maybe the Astros can fix him up as a pitcher. But all things like that, man, go check out BellyUpSports.com. Follow them on Instagram and X at BellyUpSports and at BellyUpMedia. So you guys are in the know of everything that is Belly Up Sports, and you can check out some of the great podcasts that Belly Up Sports has to offer, like Corner Booth Pod, High Low Sports with Kelcey Coyne and DJ Stewart, Time to BS, 1420, Nate Wynn. I don't know how many podcasts that guy's on, but check out all of the great content creators that are going on over there at Belly Up. So go and check it out. Also, shout out to Golz TV, man, GolzTV. Great site, especially if you want more soccer content, soccer, football. It doesn't matter how you call it, but there's content right there. If you're tired of the same stuck up guys that talk the game and you don't like the way they're talking, well, and you like my dumbass talking, well, check out Golz TV, GolzTV. Follow them on Instagram at GolzTV, Golz.TV, and also follow them on the X at GolZ_TV. Once again, GolZ_TV, Golz_TV on the X. But yeah, man, thank you so much. Shout out to Roosevelt Spencer, the namesake of the Roosevelt Spencer Player of the Year Award. Congratulations once again, Robert Lewandowski, 3 times Player of the Year. So we love Roosevelt Spencer. He does such a great work for us. He does the intros and outros. He unfortunately has to try to edit our voices when we do these singing bets. Not anymore. This is the last time we ever do the singing bets. So yeah, man. We love and appreciate Spencer for everything he does, man. So that's why we named the Player of the Year Award after him, because that's how much we love Spencer, and Spencer loves us, and Spencer loves you too, guys. Don't ever forget that. But if you guys shoot him up, hit him up a message at That Guy Dope. Once again, at That Guy Dope, if you guys need some B work done, because he will take great care of you like he always does with us. But yeah, man, episode 199. Rest in peace, Robo, best dog in the world. Happy holidays, everybody, and have a happy New Year. We'll be back January 9th. We will be back January 9th talking about the game, getting ready for the second half of the season, and getting ready for MLS, getting ready for this FIFA Club World Cup that may or may not happen. Like all these things, we will find out in these coming weeks, in these coming months, of how all this is going to transpire. Who's going to win this new version of the Champions League? Who's going to win the new version of the Europa League, the Europa Conference League? Who's going to win the Premier League? Who's going to win? Like all the questions that we're having right now, we're going to have them answered in the second half of the season. So I can't wait. Everybody else that listens can't wait, man. I am right there with you, man. Thank you so much for being with us all throughout this year, man. And I can't wait for another great 2020, another great year. I'm excited for 2025. I'm hoping for big things to happen for this podcast, and I'm hoping it so you guys can get more and more from us, and I'm excited for that. So thank you so much for listening. Catch us next year. Take care, guys.
Early one morning while making the rounds, I took a shoot of cocaine and I shot my woman down. I went right home and I went to bed. I stuck that loving 44 beneath my head. Got up next morning and I grabbed that gun. Took a shot of cocaine and away I run. Made a good run, but I run too slow. They overtook me down in Juarez, Mexico. Laid in the hot joints, taking the pills. In walked the sheriff from Jericho Hill. He said, Willie, your name is not Jack Brown. You're the dirty hack that shot your woman down. Said, yes, my name is Willie Lee. If you got a warrant, just to read it to me. Shot her down because she made me slow. I thought I was her daddy, but she had 5 more. When I was arrested, I was dressed in black. They put me on the train and they took me back. Had no friend for to go my bill. They slide up my carcass in the county jail. Fuck! In Norton about 9:30. I spied the sheriff coming down the line. And he coughing as he cleared his cloak. He's coming, you dirty hack, into the district court. Into the courtroom my trial began, where I was handled by 12 honest men. Just before the jury started up, I saw that little judge commence to look about. In about 5 minutes in walked a man, holding the verdict in his right hand. The verdict read in the first degree. Oh, Lordy, have mercy on me. The judge, he smiled as he picked up his pen. 99 years in the Folsom pen. 99 years underneath that ground. I can't for day to day. I shot that bad bitch down. Come on, you've gotta listen unto me. Lay off that whiskey and let that cocaine be.